So, this is going to be my first video for the NSFW series, which is, I just learned maybe about a few months ago, means not safe for work. And the reason behind that is going to be kind of like more topics, like spicy topics, like things like dating, sex, um, basically all of that. Attraction, lust, love, things that you really like when you're at work. You really don't, unless you do, maybe you do talk about them at work, but I don't. When I was working with people, I never did, because I was taught you keep it simple, you keep it private life private, and your professional life, your work is your work. You don't sit there and share stuff about your job and other things that are very, very personal. So I don't have a cupcake with me. I do have tea though in my, this is one of my favorite cups that I have. It says, if all you have is God, well, if all you have is God, you have all you need, which I got it at Marshall's, actually, here in town in St. Albans a few months ago. And then I also, I used to have tea a lot more, but now I was craving tea, and I don't have, so it's not coffee, but it's actually it's hawthorn and with hibiscus. So this is my tea. It's from Traditional Medicinals. It's really good. And also, fun fact on while I was letting the tea brew, it says, there's a little quote with each one of these. There comes a little quote, and it says, "Are not flowers the stars of the earth?" And I'm someone, I love flowers. I don't know why. Like literally everything. I have a flower sticker. I have a butterfly on the back with a flower. I have clothes. Like literally, I don't know why. I just think they're so beautiful. It's like literally, it's true though. Like stars are basically flowers when you think about it. And I'm just obsessed with them. So, and they're just really pretty to look at. So, the topic, I figured it would be, I was actually debating. I was like, so two things. I actually have lipstick on. I did put more makeup on. I did my hair. I was like, if I'm going to present myself and talk about this topic, I was like, let's look the best and feel the best, right? Because I do believe, like, when you dress well and you care about your appearance, your confidence level goes up. So, but I was debating if I should like wear, which you can't do that on the internet, especially since it's YouTube. It's not like, but I thought the topic, because of the topic that I'm going to be talking about, I thought, oh, should I wear something like more seductive or like skint, like I don't have anything really, I don't really own anything like super like skin bearing. I do wear like tank tops and stuff, but I really don't have, it's because like, especially in coming from Miami, like the people, when you see Miami people walk around like in like little like Speedos, and like, girls, like even going out to nice restaurants, girls wear things. I remember when I was a server, it was Chris, people used to come in. One girl it was a sheer like little rhinestone outfit. You can see her underwear, her bra. It was very sparkly, it was very pretty, but it was just, and I don't know if she was wearing underwear. I don't know. People in Miami are interesting. You would never see that here in Vermont. But yeah, so I was wondering, I was like, should I dress like in a cute outfit or like, but instead I chose a green long sleeve tank top because it's comfortable. And it's funny because yesterday I wore like a strappy little like not a camisole, like a spaghetti tank top with like shorts. But today I was like, it's a little bit colder, so I'm waiting for it to turn to summer. I'm waiting for it to be spring. I don't know when it's going to turn to spring here. Is there a spring? It literally feels like winter doesn't stop. Like I feel like it's winter and maybe summer. There's no spring here. Oh no, fall. There is a fall season, so I take that back. So fall season does happen. And I don't know how long this is going to be of a recording. Granted, I don't even know how much storage I have. I have to get like an external drive to record these videos and whatnot. But it is right now 11:07 a.m. and it is Saturday. I was planning on going to the post office, and then it ended up raining because I have to return. So I was going to walk with my dog to the post office, and I don't have, like I said, I don't have a car. I wanted to get a scooter. I don't have that. And a taxi right here. So there's no Uber and there's no Lyft here in St. Albans. It's basically, they have a taxi service. And it's like $10 to $11 per ride, and I really can't afford that right now. So, and I know that sounds like a little, but when I was in Virginia, a ride in Uber costs like maybe $3 because I was subscribed to Lyft Pink. So they give you like a discount. But yeah, I'm not like in cute, like a dress. Like I don't own. I just realized that I don't own anything super like seductive. I don't even have high heel. No, I do. I do have high heels, but they're they look like ballroom shoes. Like I got them for ballroom dancing. I didn't because I don't really wear high heels. I wear sneakers. I wear sandals. I wear ballet flats, like cute ballet flats. Um, I'm very modest. But what's okay? So this is gonna be an interesting part. This is why I was like, this is gonna be a fun topic for me because it all kind of goes together because sexuality, sex, and all that. Just so I guess what I'm gonna do is because I don't know. Everyone has different perspectives when it comes to that stuff. Some people are like very free with their sexuality and they're very like open about it, and some people are more reticent. Some people are super conservative and like, you wouldn't catch. I can't imagine someone that's Amish, like let's say they come from Amish country and they wear the bonnet, they don't use electricity. I don't think they'd be like talking about I'm gonna suck his, stuff like that, or talking really dirty and raunchy. So it's gonna be an interesting topic for me to talk about because just a little bit background into my life with that, which again, I don't mind sharing this on the internet because it might help somebody. But my words. I finally figured out the quote that was from Morgan Harper Nichols, that says, it was like super far back in my photo history. I should have pinned it. Oh, you know what? I know where it is. It's under my quotes. Forgive me if this takes like a few seconds. Oh no, it's not. Is it? No. Fudgesicles. I had it. I'm like frustrated. I need to organize all my. I save a lot of quotes. Like for instance, so like this, like that's a cute quote that I like. There's a company called Natural Life that's based in Jacksonville, Florida, and I love their they send like a blurb out. It's called a chirp, because their logo is like a little bird, and like this, like it kind of looks like this, and but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is there's a quote, and it's by Morgan Harper Nichols, and she basically says like, go and tell your story about the mountains you climbed because it might help someone else survive. Oh, okay, I found it. This is the quote. I finally found it. Tell the story of the mountain you climbed. Your words could become a page in someone else's survival guide. And I took it up. I'm gonna turn this way. I took it upon myself. That's really the whole reason why I'm doing a YouTube channel, is because I feel like there are people out there who are going through the same thing that I am, or did, or maybe will go through in the future. Trauma is very subjective to the person. Well, it's a generalized thing, but trauma itself, we all go through that, but the experience is subjective. So, but the feelings that trauma evokes are, they can all kind of lend itself for, grief, anxiety, fear, stress, doubt, shame, all these things kind of go together. So, yeah, but that's the reason why I decided, which actually, you know what, while I'm on that picture, I'm going to put it in my quotes folder. We're going to do that. So, let's begin, shall we? So, sex, NSFW, which now I know is, so I'm let's start at the very beginning. I'm not singing. I like to sing, but so that's from Sound of Music, where Julie Andrews, she's singing to the kids, and if I actually did, I'm too scared to. I was like, man, maybe I should really sing, like, for real, like, do it really, but I can't. I get too nervous. And what's funny is I used to do musical theater and sing on stage, but I guess being out of it, like, I'm just too nervous. I won't be able to do it. So anyways, because I know this is going to go on the internet, and I'm too scared. So anyways, I go back. So, but let's start at the very beginning, because that'll give you insight into my life, because I want to make sure that, like, again, my experience, I don't want to generalize it, and it's funny, and I'm going to take full accountability. Growing up, I was very judgmental of people when it came to relationships, hookups, casual sex. I almost used to think of people as like sinners, because also I grew up. So again, let me start at the beginning, because I'm gonna go. It's gonna be all over the place. So, growing up in Miami, it's a very culturally diverse, eclectic city. Very freeing, carefree people, very, like, people in bikinis. In the area I lived, I grew up in a city called Coral Gables. Unless you went to Venetian Pool, you're not going to see anyone walking around in bikinis unless they're, like, tourists, like coming from Brazil or whatnot. I went to a Catholic school for middle school. I was raised Catholic. I kind of became more of a non-denominational Christian later on. I studied yoga, and that kind of just guides my life, like yogic principles and things like that, which are kind of, I kind of feel like yogic principles are very similar to the Ten Commandments in Christianity. And so because of that, I always felt like, and it's gonna get juicy in a second, like I'm gonna divulge something that even when I was which might help somebody, you never know, unless someone's gonna comment and be like, oh, you're such a prude or whatever. You can trust me, after the year I've had, I definitely am not a prude anymore. That's for sure. But yeah, so grew up Catholic. Basically, I looked at stuff like even in middle school when I went to, so we had these things called dance parties, and at dance parties, all this, the 6th, 7th, we have them up at, I think, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I think they started in 5th grade actually. And you'd go to someone's house and they would have music and they'd get a DJ. It was always for a birthday, and you would do salsa. So in Miami, there's the Archdiocese. You have there's Belen Catholic School, there's Christopher Columbus, there's a school called Lady of Lourdes, there's LaSalle, Carrollton, Gulliver, Ransom, Everglades, Gulliver Preparatory Academy, Mast Academy, Dash. There's a bunch of different schools, Coral Reef, American Heritage. And so I'm saying this because there was a sister school, Lady of Lourdes, and then there was Belen, and there was Columbus. These are the boys' schools. So all boys' schools and all girls' schools after you go from middle school. And there's a reason. I'm going to get to this. So because of that, when we had dance parties and stuff, I remember the first boy I ever danced with. I can't even remember my classmates' names. It's just so long ago. So one of them is, I'm not going to say their names. I'll just say their first name, David. He had a friend named Pablo. Pablo went to Belen. First boy I ever danced with, I was maybe 12 years old, right? 12 or 13. And I'll never forget it. He was so cute. He was like, and I was so excited because I couldn't believe. So Belen has this reputation of being it's a private school. So a lot of the families of the boys that go there, they have a lot of money. You have to pay tuition. It's not a public school. You're getting a really great, all the teachers have master's degrees. You're getting a really great education, just like Epiphany. It's very, very upper echelon type of places, right? And then there was that, and then they would come over, would come over to these dance parties, and I remember that was literally my first part. I remember one of the girls, it was at a girl, her name was Danielle, and I'm not going to say her last name just because that's privacy. I wouldn't want someone talking about my name on the internet or whatever on a YouTube video. So we were at her house, and I remember dancing, I was so excited, and I don't know. And I remember, so when you dance in middle school, you stick your arms out and you it's almost like you want to be close to somebody, but I just remember feeling, I was just oh my God, I felt so I don't know. I was so elated and so excited. And it's funny because before me, all my classmates were so much more experienced with these were girls going out on dates. They were left home alone. The parent would be there, but the parents would be doing their own thing. And they were, I'm pretty sure, so my former best friend when I was in middle school, when she had her dance party, she invited everyone to her house in Pinecrest. The mom would find kids, and this is, mind you, 14 years old. These are kids, babies, 13, 14 years old, in the boathouse. So again, they were very affluent. This was in, oh my gosh, what was it called? There's an area in South Miami, Coco Plum. Coco Plum is a really, really up there. When you think of Miami, there's Star Island, Fisher Island. Coco Plum is one of those places. It's kind of near Pinecrest in South Miami. Her house was basically there, and so you can only imagine it was pretty nice sized land. And but anyways, they found her mom found boys and girls in the small pool house, and they were from what I understand, I'm not gonna say her name, but my friend told me, they were doing I don't even know. Can I talk about this on YouTube? I don't know. How do I talk about it in an appropriate manner without being too risque. It was fellatio, I guess. Oral. Can I say oral? They were over the pants, hands action happening between boys and girls and things. And this was, mind you, 12, 13, 14-year-old kids. I was just, at that time, I was just like, I think ogling probably over like maybe Aaron Carter or like Backstreet Boy. I don't know. Probably like a pop star or something at the time. I can't remember who was my celebrity crush at the time. Probably a musician or something. But to move on forward from that, I never, and it's funny because in terms of crushes and things like that, I didn't get any, there was no action, no whatever. I liked boys and stuff, and it's funny, one of the boys that I did like, I'm not gonna say his name, in middle school, he actually insulted me and made fun of me and said I had a unibrow and I looked like the Grinch. So, and I did, when I was in middle school, I wasn't the most, I had buck teeth, I had one tooth that was like sticking out. I didn't have braces yet, I think, or maybe I had braces like in 8th grade, I think, or 9th grade, and yeah, I had a buck tooth, I had a unibrow, my hair was really frizzy. That's kind of, I think, why I put my hair up in a bun all the time, because my hair was supposed to be very floofy, and I didn't know how to maintain it. And so, yeah, I had a few crushes, and I remember one kid, his mom actually passed away, it's really sad. He was one of the nicer boys in the school. He sat in front of me, again, I'm not going to say his name, but sweet, like we always would joke, he would joke around about my pen. To this day, I remember what my pencil case looked like. It was like a gray pencil case, and he would always he'd turn around from his desk. It's kind of like when you think of Mean Girls, like Aaron Samuels, like when he turns around and he asks Katie Heron for like a pencil or something, and it was kind of like that. But he wasn't as, well, he was kind of popular, yeah, I would say. He was with the popular kids, and mind you, I was like, again, 13, 14 years old, but I loved those. It was such a silly moment, and I was just like, so happy, because I was like in little girl mode, like, oh my god, he asked for, and we actually became pretty good friends and stuff. But like I was not really as like in the popular group, the popular kids hung out with the popular girls, the other people didn't really. And it's sad when you're middle school and you have these cliques and stuff, but it's part of life. I wish we can eradicate cliques, because it's really mean. It really does a lot to your self-esteem growing up and your self-confidence. But left that school, and then I didn't go to Lourdes. I went to an art school. That was, oh my god, when you talk about sex and dating and all that, what a different experience that was. Holy moly. Like, night and day compared to, like, my back hurts a little bit. Night and day compared to, what's it called? Oh, excuse me. I had a burp. Because when it gets really hot like that, it's, ugh. But, night and day when you compare, like, modesty and propriety and sexuality and stuff like that. It was like you'd find people making out like in the stairwell, amongst other things that were kind of gross to find out, like condoms and also the high school I went to was also a college as well, so it was both, because if you go to New World, you were dual enrolled with Miami-Dade College. So I just realized I'm not wearing my headphones this whole time. I should probably be wearing my headphones, but it is what it is. So I'm gonna keep going. So that was a very different experience. I feel like people's attitudes towards sex and stuff was very casual and easygoing. I'll never forget. So when my brother was an upperclassman, like he was 2 grades above me, and they had this musical group called the Connections, and I remember very distinctly, girls would be changing. They'd be in a room with a bunch of just changing, taking their tops off. They'd be in their bra and like changing into a costume, and I was just like, I'd be the person, like I'd be hiding. I'd need to go to the bathroom, and I would just, that was not me at all. And so modesty kind of went out the window. And then in terms of flirting and relationships, I think in all high schools it's probably like that. I remember one time I was on the metro. So we would take the metro rail to go to downtown Miami to go to school. Again, very different way of going about high school, because it was an art school. So going on the metro, I'll never forget, you'd be with Dash students. I think I don't know if Mass Academy was in Brickell or somewhere in downtown Miami. but you'd be with other students like that were also artsy fartsy, and I call them artsy fartsy because they are very artsy fartsy. And then so yeah, so I remember going on the train, and one of my classmates, he was older than me, and my brother knew him very well. We were, and my parents knew his parents. I'll never forget when he talked about his private area. I don't know if I can say words like dick and stuff, and I don't know. I don't feel like, I don't know if I should say that. But his man bits, he was talking about man parts. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna give like soft analogies to things. I'm gonna say rod, his rod, his rod or nether regions. Um, he remember he talked to his friend, who later on he came out and he was gay, but like at the time he didn't really disclose that to anybody. I think he was probably still like searching him, finding out what he liked or whatever. And he was a cute kid, like he was a cute guy, very talented, amazing singer. And I'm not going to talk too much because he actually like is on Broadway, not on Broadway, or no, yes, was he on Broadway? He was in the national tour of a very, very big show right now. And I don't want to say anything, so I want to be very respectful. A lot of people who went to my high school actually, or college, they actually became like well known, you know, in the theater community or in TV and film, whatever. So I want to be mindful and respectful. I wouldn't want people talking about me on some YouTube channel, so I want to be, for the sake of anonymity, you know. But anyways, so he was on the metro, and I remember sitting like near them, and they were talking about how he was like, yeah, my rod, it's just, imagine a lollipop covered in hair, and his friend's like, ha, that's so funny. And I'm sitting there feeling like super embarrassed, because anything related to sex was just, I was like, nope. I was so, like, for me it was taboo, and I guess, and I keep looking back in my life, and I go, when I was raised, did we talk about that in my household? I don't really remember doing so, to be honest. And in 5th grade at Epiphany, they really didn't. I feel like there needs to be a really honest sex ed class, because they taught us about what our periods were. They taught us about like men, like when they go through puberty, their voice gets lower. They develop chest hair, pubic hair. Like they talk about that, and like testosterone, estrogen, but they don't actually talk about sex and like ejaculation and like foreplay and all this other stuff. And I really, when you're kids, I mean, granted, you don't want to talk about foreplay in like middle school, but they didn't really talk about how sex worked. What, you know, I'm not kidding. Up until 5th grade, I'm probably gonna look really bad saying this, but I literally thought babies would come from storks, because that was up until like 4th or 5th grade. And then I think I don't know how old, when I was in my dance classes at my dance academy. One of my friends, the other dance girls, she was very kind of, my mom described her as wild, because compared to like, yeah, so she was very much more out there, very more sassy, bold, and she was like 12, 13 years old. She was giving manicures to people at like 12, 13 to this day, and she's also in LA, and she does acting and theater and stuff, so I want to be mindful of her. But and she was very talented, she was a great dancer too, at flamenco especially. But she would, you know, she was the one who talked about, like, what we say in Spanish, cojones, you know, testicles, balls, or whatever. And I still, even to that point, I didn't even know that you know, so I was very kind of in the dark about certain things. I'm trying to think from there. So New World in my high school, like, it was very, put it this way, I was once stretching on a wall so when you're in dance, you do this exercise where it looks like basically, if you say spread eagle, you do a straddle on the wall, so it helps tear your muscle fibers in your like inner thighs, so that way gravity kind of works itself out, like where your legs, you're trying to do like a straddle, so you're helping develop the elasticity and flexibility by so I was basically lying down on the floor, legs open like this, and one of my classmates, who was a girl, and this is where boundaries come in, because I was very like mealy mouthed and I didn't want to say anything. She actually like sat on top of my stomach, facing me, straddling like me, and this was in my high school. It was the most. I was like, I didn't know what to say, and I'm very like nice as a person, so I didn't want to be like, get off me, like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, Ashley, you're so cute, whatever, and I was just like, I just didn't know what to do. I like froze. I was like, so. You know, because I came from the dance world and ballet world. Ballet people are very, like, especially when you grow up dancing, it's very either about, like, competition and, you know, dance recitals and cute costumes. It's not very like, no one's really too ballsy or whatever. So, or brash in any way. So that was that, and also we'd have exercises where like, basically in my high school, we'd have like massage trains at like 16 years old, 17. We would sit in a circle and people would massage each other's backs. There was a lot of dating that went on. And I just kind of was like an observer, like a silent observer. I remember I told one of my classmates, who I ended up actually becoming, not like good friends with him, but like later on senior year, I looked at him as being like one of the nicer of the bunch. And I remember sophomore year because I didn't go there sophomore year. I got in high school. You have to audition to get into high school. I got in there sophomore year, and I remember telling one of my class, I was like, "You're a bad boy," and I think he took it to heart. I think he was pretty upset. Like, it upset him, just because I always saw him like flirting with like dancers and stuff like that, and he actually turned out to be one of the nicer of the bunch later on. Like I said, like in senior year, and we had this like running joke about our shoes being too stinky, because my shoes really were stinky. So he'd say like, "Oh, you have stinky feet." But anyways, I digress. But yeah, so that's that. I did have my first boyfriend when I was at 14, 15. I'm not gonna say his name either, out of respect for him. He was very nice. I can't say really anything bad about him. I had broken up with him because my best friend told me that he, and this is school, it's high school, so everyone, drugs, whatever, it wasn't hard, it was just weed, and I'm really sensitive to things like that. I don't smoke weed, I don't vape, I don't do hookah, I don't do any of that. I'm pretty straight-laced. So, yeah, and I found that out, and other things about him in terms of his virginity. She told me that he had had sex at like 14, and I was like, and that his ex-girlfriend tried cocaine or something, and I'm like, nope, I do not want to be associated with him. And I didn't want to be, and after that, let me tell you, when you have to see someone in the hallway, it is so awkward, because like, God, it's awkward, and I didn't want to, and then also too, what made it really awkward was my best friend at the time was like, she and him were like brother and sister. They were really close. So my friendship kind of got stunted and like basically hindered a bit because of that, so that was that. And then it's funny because later on in high school, in senior year, when you have senior superlatives, he and I were voted Mr. and Mrs. Congeniality, which is like, that was always interesting to me, because I'm like, that's funny. It was a very short-lived relationship. It was probably maybe like 3 months at most, and I don't mind saying that. Like I went off to summer camp. It was called summer camp in upstate New York, a performing arts summer camp, and I never forget. To this day, I still wonder. So the cabin that I was in, he had written me a letter, like a handwritten letter, and he to this day I wonder if it's like where it is. It got lost in like the bunk, like. And then he ended up he went to New York. His family was from New York, I think Long Island or something. I don't remember where, Staten Island or something. And he ended up visiting his brother up there, and then he saw me, like he went up to visit his brother, and then we connected. And then when I found out some of those things that my friend had told me about him, I was like, I'll never forget. We were at the Skyline Hotel, and I was sitting in the laundry room with my mom, and I told my mom, yeah, I think I'm going to break up with him. And she's like, okay, you do what you want, because I'm such a person, I'm so steadfast in my morals that like I can't deviate from them. So once I find out something about somebody, especially if they're lying about it, I don't remember if he lied, if he didn't tell me. We were just getting to know each other. So like, and also I do remember I hadn't like kissed him. I remember, I'll never forget, we were in Little Italy and we took him to dinner. And one of the things my parents told me is that they didn't like the fact that he said, oh, because he worked at a restaurant, like as a busser or something in Doral, Florida, an Italian restaurant, and he commented like, oh, the chicken parm at my restaurant is so much better. That was it. My parents were like, forget about, like, they're like, no. So, but he was still a cool dude. I'll never forget, I saw Spider-Man for the first time with him at Dolphin Mall, and that's where he asked me, he's like, do you want to be my girlfriend? And I was like, sure, And it was so cute. I remember I was so giddy at the time getting like text messages from him. And now it's like, it's so funny as an adult, like I got a text message from a guy and I'm like, I could give a shit less, because I'm like, until you prove to me that you are who you say you are and you're not married and you're straight, I literally won't take a text message or anything from a man seriously. And even now I like look to see if, yeah, so, yeah. Uh, so basically, yeah, that's that. That was high school. Broke up with him. It was in New York. I was sitting on the washing machine, and I remember telling him, I was like, yeah, and then he was like, okay. I think he was really sad too. I felt bad. I tend to kind of be. I'm always the one to like break up with people. I'm usually not the one where people. And not to say like I have been ghosted before. It's the suckiest feeling. I think ghosting someone is so shitty. I think, and that's gonna be another video for another time. But like, I just think if I will only, on a side note, if I'm on a dating app, I will only delete someone and not talk to them at all. Like, give any response if there's like zero chemistry, if I feel like they're like a turd or like a douche or like a jerk, and they just can't carry a conversation, and there's like no spark. I'm like, forget about it. If they're not engaged in like a good back and forth, like if there's no reciprocity, I'm not gonna even like, I'll just be like delete, unmatch, because it's very like on the surface. Until you're like, you have their number and you see them and you go on a date, that's when it's more like, I think, legitimate. But yeah, so then that was that senior year. I didn't really, I'm trying to think, did I ever, I did. So my first kiss was in summer camp at I was 14. I'm not gonna say his name. I was about to say his name. I was like, I need to be respectful, because I'm like, not that I don't think anyone's gonna, because my name is not on this video or whatever. I have a different name for the channel, but I will never forget it. That kiss. Oh my god, it was the most embarrassing thing. So since I hadn't kissed anybody, so I was in a play. It was called Importance of Being Earnest. I played Gwendolyn Fairfax, and it was a really fun play. It's written by Oscar Wilde, and I. It was it it was such a hot mess. I'll never forget. Because I thought to kiss someone passionately. Like, I remember tilting my head a lot, because I read, like, I was really into reading like the not little kids magazines, but like in like CVS and Walgreens and stuff. What was really popular at the time, I don't know if it's popular anymore, like Cosmo, J14, Popstar. I forgot the names of them, but they would give you like tips on like how to kiss and how to attract a man and how to find out if someone likes you. I was really into reading those, because again, I was not knowledgeable or educated or experienced in any way. But mind you, I was only like 13, 14 years old. But anyways, I'll never forget, I have an unread message on Etsy. I should probably focus and not read. Okay, I'll read it after. But anyways, so I'm gonna take a sip of my tea. Basically, I'm spilling the tea about my life. But again, hopefully maybe it might help somebody. So I remember just very distinctly, this was at the Performing Arts Summer Camp, and I put my hand, and he had good hair. He had nice hair. I put my hand on his head, like this. I put it super high instead of like here, like on his face. It was like I literally put my head, like it was like this, and I twisted my face, and imagine this is his head. I put my hand and I forced his head to over mine, and it was the most and I thought it would look good, and I really tried to, obviously there was no like chemistry between us, but like I just, I don't know. It was acting, so I was trying to make it like seem pleasurable. I think he and I both, it was like awkward, because he was very like quiet as a person too, and like he wasn't really too flirtatious with good girls in summer camp, and so it was like, imagine getting like two nerds trying to kiss each other for the first time. That's basically what it was like. Which I have no shame saying that. I was a baby. I was 14. So that was that experience. I still, even though it was like a staged kiss, I still look at it as my first kiss ever. And yeah, so, but fast forward senior year, the only other time I kissed somebody was one of my classmates, because it was very quick too. He was really sad. So when you go to an art school, you have this like thing at the end of the year where it's called, was it Thespians? No, it wasn't Thespians. It was like, basically, it wasn't Thespians. I take it back. It was a college like showcase. So basically, all these colleges come to a certain, I think it was it Lakeland, Florida? I don't remember where it was, but basically or maybe it was Thespians. I don't remember what it was. But anyways, you perform a monologue, and you do a song, like a little snippet of a song, and then they like, colleges reach out to you and you go to their booth and then they tell you whether they want a callback audition or not. I remember for me, I got called back. It was, and I got into not FSU, to Boston Conservatory. FSU, I got a call back as well, but I didn't go because I was too scared to leave home. So anyways, he didn't do too well on in his thing. He felt like he bombed it. So, and he was always in high school, he would flirt, so I'm not gonna say his name either, but he would flirt with me a lot. This boy, he always called me lady. He would say my lady. I don't know why, but he treated me very like if I was like royalty, you know. And then so he would call me lady, and part of me, to be honest, as a girl, liked it. He was a brooding actor. Like, he was very artistic. This guy, he wanted to be a playwright. He would write. I remember, and I actually was in his one of his short plays programs when they had the school, and that was interesting. But he was very pensive, very introspective. He was a good actor, I would say. I would think, I would think so. And mind you, this is like, we're 15, 16, 17 years old. It's just they're kids, but yeah, I kind of did it too. It was so out of character for me. I just did it because he was so sad after his mom, because he felt like he bombed it. So I went and I remember going up to him, and it was like a very quick kiss. It was like a peck kind of thing, and he couldn't believe I did that, because he was like, and I remember when I told my parents, my dad had this nickname for him. I'm not gonna say his nickname, but my dad had a nickname for him, which was like, it wasn't that nice. It had to do with like his facial features, and I'm like, you know. But anyways, so that was that, and then there was another stage kiss. That was not a stage kiss. That was just him, whatever. And he totally threw him off. He was like, he couldn't believe it. He was so happy after. He was like, and then he thought he was gonna get another one after that, and I was like, no. I was like, that was a one-time thing. I was like, I will never kiss you again, because I was like, I did that. I was like, for you to get out of your head because you were so sad about, you know. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. So I wasn't a tease in high school at all, but I got a little bit more confidence as I grew up, right in my adolescence. So that was that, and then I did have another stage kiss when we were in a show. It was called Thoroughly Modern Millie. I played Dorothy. So Millie's the main character, and Dorothy's also like a main character, I guess. They were the female leads in the show, and I was Dorothy. I think her name is Dorothy Brock. Don't quote me on it. She has a very like soprano-y song called How the Other Half Lives. And at the end of the show, I had to kiss. It's funny, he was my age, but he was in the grade like lower than me, and he was a cool kid. He had quite the story. His dad had passed away when he was younger. He was really into like martial arts and stuff like that. And he had a tattoo dedicated on his back to his dad. And he treated me with such respect, this guy. I call him kid. He was a kid at the time. But I'll never forget, like, kissing somebody. It was such a weird feeling for me, because and after I'd kissed the other guy in the summer camp, this was like a year after that. And for me, it was just, I'll never forget, I was like, I don't know. It was just different. It was weird. Like, not weird, it was good, but it's just, I'll never forget, I was like, I could feel his teeth, and like, it was a stage kiss. It wasn't like a real kiss. It was a stage kiss. So like, I think I made it look decent. Oh no, I take it back. I did kiss someone else. Oh my god, I almost forgot him. The guy that I had originally told that was, in high school, that I had told was like a playboy and like flirtatious. The one who I ended up being kind of more friends with later on, he was really heartbroken. I feel really sad for him. He was heartbroken over this girl that like he was totally in love with, and I tried to console him with that and whatnot. But anyways, that's a side story. But because we actually, like, he was one of like the only few guys that I felt like he was decent amongst all the other people that I went to school with. Because he was never the one that would flirt with me. Like, he treated me with respect. He was one of the few boys there that treated me with respect. But he and I were very different. I remember my parents would say that he and I came from like different walks of life, and like, you know, but I respected anyone. I never judged anyone whether they were like rich, poor, or whatever. So if someone treats me with respect, they have all my attention. Like, I am theirs. Like, my heart will be yours. I will be your friend. people that are like overly flirtatious or like, super like, I'm super cool and I'm like Mr. Papi Chulo, I have no time for that. It got really windy out of nowhere. I could have gone to the post office right now and it literally said, I'm sorry, I sidetracked because the weather, it was not supposed to rain. See, it was supposed to rain at noon. I'm telling you, the weather here, bro. Anyways, so I take it back. I almost forgot about that kiss with him. I chose this guy. So the same guy that I told was kind of like a playboy, whatever. And I think he got, in my super superlatives, he got like class flirt, along with the girl who sat on my stomach. And I think she's a nurse now. I don't really know what she's up to, but she had a really pretty voice. She had a very operatic voice. But yeah, I chose him to be my scene partner. I picked a play that it was in my brother's catalog of plays because my brother was the one that did theater and whatnot. But I picked a play that it was a really good play too. I forgot the name of the playwright. He was an American playwright. I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember. The material was it was really heavy. It was a couple, and they were like having an argument, I think, about, I can't remember what about, but it was a stretch for me because, and I remember I told him, I was like, and the reason why I'm mentioning this, because I'm trying to give you like the timeline about sex, in not sex, like, well, yeah, sex, but like engaging with the opposite sex, I guess, my history of like how things came to be in my life, because some people's stories are way different than mine. So yeah, I picked this piece and it was like, and I told myself, I was like, do I, because this might change the way, like, in terms of me being friends with him, it might change, but it didn't really, like, it actually didn't, because he was pretty, like, I think he had a lot more experience, I think, with sex and all that, like, in dating, like, I'm sure 100%. So, but I felt comfortable with him, and I wanted to do something that was challenging for me, so I remember I presented him the idea. I was like, I don't know how he felt about it, but I remember I said, do you mind being my scene partner? And it was senior year, and I was like, I know people at senior year, they have something, senioritis, when you're like ready to leave, you're like, fuck it. I don't know if I could say fuck it. Basically, you're like, you don't give a shit anymore. You're like, I'm done. No, they get their grades, whatever, you do the SAT, and that's it. But I asked him to be my scene partner, and there was, and I did tell him, I was like, there is a kiss in this thing. I was like, I hope you're okay with that. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And we did. And I don't remember what, it was a staged kiss. It wasn't like I was kissing someone because it came from like my heart or like, I will say, I probably had a but we were more friends. I can't really say it was a crush. Like, I don't know, because he was, I actually was like turned off by him in like sophomore year because I was like, oh, he seems so flirtatious. And then it's like almost if you have it's like, I don't say opposites attract, but he was very different from me, growing up. Like very just, like our ways of being, like I was not flirtatious, I was very modest. He was very like all the time talking to girls and stuff, and he was liked by different girls, so I just was kind of like, no, I was like, but then I ended up becoming friends with him and I did my scene. So that was another kiss that happened. I don't know what he's up to now. Actually, he was someone I reached out to a few years ago after I went through this whole situation when I went back to Miami, because I was so scared after the thing that I went through in my life that I was like, I reached out to, that's how scared I was. I reached out to someone I went to high school with that was, so I was, and he unfortunately he never wrote. I don't blame him. What I texted him was pretty like out there, and like I was really scared. I'm not gonna get into that. I'm not gonna get into that. But anyways, he was someone that I went to high school with, and I did respect, and we were like high school friends or whatever. So, but that was another thing. So I moved on from that. And what else is there? I'm trying to remember. After that, college, New World College. Didn't really went to one semester there. There were some cute. It's so funny. So I'll never forget. There was a guy. I think at New World College I had a crush on, but he was obviously upperclassman. And so when you're in New World High School, you do stage tech for the college shows, and I did the stage tech, and I had like a crush on this guy, and he was gay. The guy was gay. And I was so enamored by him. I was like, oh my god, and I was so excited to sit in the wings, like watch him sing, but he was gay. I'll never forget, they did a show called Parade, and I was just, and then when I found out he was gay, I was like, no. I have this propensity, even growing up, because I grew up around the theater world, to musical theater, and the theater in where I grew up, it was called Actors Playhouse. A lot of people in the South Miami community, it's like a small world. You end up knowing everybody, but some of the dancers and the actors that were in the shows, they were gay, and I was so in love. I was like, they're so cute, and I would love to sit in the audience, but they were gay, and so they didn't like women, they liked men. So, anyways, moving forward. College, college was very bleak. I remember, I did work at a place called Venetian Pool. I never forget. I was a camp counselor, and I worked, I worked behind the counter, and I made burgers. I flipped burgers on an actual grill, like a line cook. I flipped burgers. I made pizza. I was the cashier for the cafe there, and then I also worked at the front desk. And yeah, that was fun. I remember there were some lifeguards there. There were one I had a crush on. No, two of them, but one was older than me, so I was like, forget about that. But I was just, I was like I was like, oh my god, I was by the pool, I'm like, I hope I look cute, or I hope I look good and I don't look stupid, which I probably looked really dumb, but whatever. Again, I'm not gonna say their names. One of the other lifeguards, I'll never forget, I was sitting up in the tower, the lifeguard tower, because I go, where can we eat? There was no break room where we were, so a lot of people the staff would sit in the lifeguard tower, and, up above where you can see everything. And they had like a microwave, whatever, and I'll never forget, like, one of them would come in. I was so nervous. I was really nervous. I was so nervous around boys. And like, I remember he went to FIU too, like, or he was trying to go to FIU or Miami-Dade, and he was nice, but I just would get so nervous, and I didn't know how to act, and I would go on my phone or read a book or something. I used to bring books with me everywhere. I was very much like, if there was something besides my phone, I used to like have my head in a book all the time. That's usually was my go-to. When I was on break, I would be reading a book. I don't want to say I'm like the real life version of like Belle from Beauty and the Beast, but like literally I'm like the one that I wasn't on my phone, I wasn't on Instagram, I didn't have that many like people on social media. I would have a book, whether it was on like psychology, self-help, a fiction book, a historical fiction book. That was kind of my thing. So I kind of just would like keep to myself, and yeah, he was nice, but he was known as like the flirt, so I didn't really want to really engage with him in any way. But it was funny. I have a propensity for attracting like the bad boys, which is like, because I'm so modest or whatever, I'm the kind of person that I attract the guy that's like the player and whatever, and they're not good for you. They're like a walking red flag, but you're like, no. Like Taylor Swift has the song Blank Space, where she's like, I can make the bad guys good for a weekend, and I'm like, yeah. I'm like, no. Lesson learned as adult, once a player, always a player. Once they cheat, they'll cheat again. And if they cheated with you, like they cheated on somebody, but they're cheating, like they cheat on somebody, but they're cheating with you, like you're the person that they cheated with or whatever, they're probably going to cheat on you too. So that's how I saw it. But anyways, so I did go to like get-togethers with these people at their houses, like the lifeguard people. Like, that was a lot of fun. We'd play Just Dance, but then they'd go off and smoke hookah or whatever, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. We'd watch movies, we'd eat popcorn, make milkshakes, stuff like that. It was a good time. I can't really complain about that. I felt grateful that they included me in their activities, to say that. And we'd like go out at night and look at the stars and, see stuff like that as a group, So I wasn't that much of a recluse. I did have friends, but I just was very modest, and I still, like, there were people that I was working with that had, their relationships, they were in relationships in like the places that I was at. Let me see something. Actually, speaking of things, I have a phone call. I did get back into dating, which is crazy considering all the things. I feel like I shouldn't be here. I feel like it's a miracle that I'm alive, which again, I'm not going to go into my situation of what I've gone through, but I'm trying to see, 12:30. I don't really know. I every single time I take matches on dating apps with a grain of salt. Like, until you show me that you're invested and interested, I'm not gonna even get overly interested. I may check my phone and be like, oh, did they write whatever? Okay, no. Then I'm just gonna be like, whatever. That's why I say hope for the best, prepare for the worst. But anyways, so by 12:30 I have to. So I'm gonna try to. I might need to do a part 2 to this, but the part 1 is kind of just like the intro of like what my experience was in dating and where I got to now, because it's gonna get juicy. Because one of the things I'm gonna say is people might be like, holy crap, really? Did you like have like what why? And I have been asked. The reason why I say this, because which I'll mention later, but I'm gonna get to that point. I might have to end with that point. So. What was I saying? I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Okay, so college, FIU. Did I do anything? Oh, Venetian pool, whatever. Hung out with the lifeguards, that's it. There was sorry, take it back. There was a guy in college. I did have some crushes on people that like I would be sitting catty corner to, like in a very large classroom in school. But college is hard. Like, unless you already have friends there, especially in a big college, it's like if it's a community college or public research university, it's hard. And maybe if you join a fraternity or on a sports team, but for me, I was solely focused on just academics and like doing good essays, and I did pretty well in college. I had like a 3.7, 3.6, 3.5 average, roughly. And I really loved to write in school, so I was very focused on my studies. And then I think during that time, I think I volunteered. When did I start volunteering? I started volunteering, it was 2010. Yeah, 2010 I became a bedside buddy. Oh, there we go. That's a good, so more about dating. I did meet people when I was volunteering at a hospital. This was, I think, so I graduated, yes, 2010, because I graduated 2013 with my bachelor's. So I was volunteering at my local pediatric hospital, and there were a lot of like, there's doctors, there's the nurses, but as a volunteer, I wasn't really looking to like, I didn't treat a volunteer assignment as like a dating thing. Like, I was going there because I wanted to help kids, because I wanted to, pass toys out to the kids and do that. There was a guy, there are a few guys actually, there's two main ones. That one guy I had a crush on at least probably for 4 or 5 years. No lie, I don't know if he probably doesn't know that. But I had the biggest crush on this guy. He was so sweet, so funny. He was like a kid at heart. Like, literally, my personality and his were so in tandem. I remember when we would have lunch, because after the shift they'd give you like a meal voucher. So me, myself, and the other person like that we were in a group in, they were called bedside buddies. We would go and we would have lunch in the cafeteria, and I was like, I don't want to say head over heels, but I was crushing hard. Like, this guy, he was so cute. He was Cuban American. He was pre-med. He loved to go bike riding, and that was like his thing, was like cycling or whatever. So what made it super murky and weird was that the vibes were definitely there. I'll never forget one of the moments, and if I could capture it and write a snippet about it, because I do like to write. I used to do short stories and stuff on my phone, and then I deleted it because when I went through a whole hacking situation, I had to like get a new phone, so all my stories went away that I had. But I'll never forget when you go into a patient's room, you have to wear PPE, which is personal protective equipment, and it was a yellow gown, and they have like this little thing in the back that you have to like, it's like a little sticky thing to make it stay on, and then you put on you tie it at the top. So mind you, I'm someone who I was probably, how old was I? I'm really bad at math. So I'm 33. It's 2025. If you do, okay, hold on. I can do this. I got this. If it was 2010, so no, I didn't mean if it was 2010. It was probably 2011, 2012. Just kidding, I can't do it. So I will need my calculator. 2 seconds. I'm curious to see how old I was. 13 years ago. Oh, 20. Okay, wow, oh my god, I was 20 years old. I was 21 years old. Maybe no, I think I was like 22, 21 or 22. But anyways, I'll never forget the day that like I wore glasses one day, and he would comment on my glasses like, "Oh, you didn't have glasses on before. You wear glasses?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And then we were doing our PPE, and I remember he tied my thing for me in the back, and I was just like, and his fingers like lingered a little bit too much longer, and I was like, I was like so smitten, and I was like, I needed to. I remember we were in a patient's room. We were on the oncology floor, and we were playing Play-Doh with a patient, and I was like, I was just so Google, like I was like, oh my god. And I remember, oh my god, I remember there was a concert for a band called The Killers, and we would talk about music a lot, and he's like, yeah, are you going to did you know that The Killers were playing? And I was like, no. And so I thought in my mind he was gonna like ask me to go to a concert. Nope, never mentioned anything about that, so that was kind of sad. So I kind of was always like, I feel like he kind of led me on, to be honest. And that was frustrating because I felt like the vibes were definitely there. We would play like footsie under the table. Like he would get his foot, and like, you know, we would send funny memes to each other like via text message, YouTube videos. Like I remember when the goat video came out, where the goat was like, like literally there's a video of a goat where it's like he goes, and there was a video called like there was Charlie Bit Me. Then there was a video with a baby. He's like, Charlie bit me. All these really viral videos. There was one with a unicorn too, where I forgot what it was called. And then the other one about shoes. Oh my god, shoes. All those big videos. We would always go back and forth sending each other. And then so I told him I think I was gonna change my volunteer assignment. So I remember I told him, I said we should like I'm gonna change my volunteer assignment. Maybe we should like we can go get like lunch or whatever. And it was me, myself, and then the other girl that was with us, and we went to Payway. I'm sorry, I just got a text message. I don't know why I get these scam text message. Report junk. Delete and report junk. I don't know what I get random job text message. Do not ever some things with jobs be very careful about because you know, you open yourself up to a whole can of worms with job scams and stuff. So, anyways, yeah, so that was a fun, interesting, like, thing. I remember that him and the other girl, I'm not gonna say her name, but they came to my house, they pet my dog, and we went to Payway, and we had, like, a nice, final lunch or whatever, and then I transferred to another department in the hospital to volunteer with child life therapy in the PICU, and I loved it. That was so wonderful. And then we would see each other, like, you know, in passing or whatever, like in the hospital, and I would always tell myself, I was like, oh, am I gonna I was like, I was so hopeful and optimistic. And then also too, he lived somewhere else in Florida, but like he worked close to where I lived in Coral Gables. So I thought, oh my God, I'm so gonna like, you know, maybe bump into him one day. And then I remember where it left off is, I remember once he said, oh, my friend and I, she's gonna take me, like, she said, he would say, oh, I have to pick up my friend. He never verbally would say girlfriend, he would say friend. So I always, and then I remember when I asked him, oh, because I was determined, I was so adamant, I was like, I like this guy, and I really didn't want to let that chance go. So I felt very proud of myself. I was actually, I demonstrated initiative, and I was proactive, and I asked him, I was like, oh, do you want to see Monsters Inc. At Sunset Place? And he said, oh, no, I can't. Every single time I said, oh, do you want to do something? He'd be like, oh, no, I have to pick up my friend. And then he's like, oh, did you see my friend and I? And I'm pretty sure it was a girlfriend, but they would go, like, on bike rides or whatever, and she was a cyclist, too. And I'm like, bro, I was like, forget about it. And then I finally realized when I saw him, so as I grew within the healthcare system where I was working, and he was still a volunteer, he kind of became, like, leadership in the volunteer department. And I saw him once on the street corner with a girl, like, holding hands in where my city was, where I lived. And then I also saw him at a volunteer reception where we do volunteer recognitions. He brought, like, this girl with him, and I'm like, and I told the person that I ended up working with at the time, that she worked in the PICU, I told her, I was like, look, I'm not going to say her name, but I was like, look, I was like, see, I told you he had a girlfriend. Because my parents actually thought he was, like, gay or something. My brother did, and I was like, no, you know, they questioned his sexuality. But anyways, yeah, so he actually, you know what? I'm gonna tell the dude that I was gonna have a phone call with if we can, so that way I can complete this whole video. I was gonna do 2 parts, but I think I'm just gonna complete it all at once. So, real time dating. I'm actually, this is important. I need to get all my thoughts out before I like. Who's this dude? Okay. No. Now I tell myself if something on Bumble says intimacy without commitment, not gonna do it. I know that kind of means friends with benefits, and I'm kind of at the point in my life I would like a relationship with somebody, but I don't really know. I want to see. It sounds bad to say that I want to do like a friend, and I wholeheartedly understand. And I'm gonna discuss this in another video about friends with benefits, but I think you don't ever want to just give your body freely to somebody, but I do feel like casual dating is just easier sometimes than doing the whole, because when you go in with the approach that you want something serious with somebody, it's so much pressure because you're like looking to see, I don't know, it's just there's so much pressure with that. And I used to, when I moved to Philadelphia, I was so like, oh, I want to do the long term. It's like, but how could you even do a long term thing when you don't even know if you're compatible with somebody yet? So it's like, I'd rather, maybe, yeah, you have the intention of doing long term, but I'd rather at this point just like, I don't know, just keep it casual, and then if it can turn into something else. But then when it's casual, people are like, oh, but then I'm going to sleep with whoever, and it's like, I don't know. Anyways, I'm not going to get into that. But and another thing is pictures. These people, someone needs to be like a dating consultant for people's pictures. But 2 seconds, because I need to redo. Do you mind if you I'm sorry. I'm like, I probably shouldn't. This is real-time Bumble texting. I'm real-time Bumble because I was going to talk with someone at 12:30, but I want to get my thoughts out and finish this whole video in its entirety. Because I was going to do it in 2 parts, but I was like, let me. I'm sorry. I'm this. Well, it's real-time Bumble, but which I don't even know if you know. Bumble is such. You never know. It's just like an introduction to like meeting somebody. But I need to take a break. I need to heat my tea up again. I know you have a meeting at 1. Sorry for the last minute change. He's probably gonna be like, oh, this girl doesn't give a shit. But it's true, I want to finish my video. Because once I'm on, my mind is stimulated and my mind is really, I don't want to stop it. Either he's gonna ignore me and be like, no. So, what was I gonna say? No! I got a piece of tape in my tea. I'm sorry. Okay, anyways. What was I saying? I forgot. I'm kind of disappointed I didn't get to go to the post office. Because Stitch Fix, so I'm subscribed to Stitch Fix, which technically I probably shouldn't be subscribed to because I'm not working right now and I technically can't afford it, but I'm like, I do need clothes. So it's like, in my mind, it's like, it is kind of like, I never realized that credit cards are like loans. That they're like basically like, they give you a credit card and you have a credit limit and then you use the credit card, kind of like borrowing money, but then I look at it like I'm going to pay it back. Because I'm very adamant, I know I will get a job. I'm not going to be homeless. I refuse. Not that I'm saying I'm borderline homeless, but I'm like, I will not be, you know. I manifest it. I send it out to the universe. You know, and I'm a very creative soul too. I keep wondering if I was meant to do a 9-to-5 job because sometimes I feel like it ties you down, but I know you need to do it. But really, my heart is like intent on like more creative, artistic avenues. I don't know. Anyways, so going back to what I was saying. Where was I? I'm trying to remember my timeline. What was my timeline? Damn it. Damn it, damn it. What was I? Oh, I was going to say his name. I'm not going to say his name. So, anyways, so this dude, volunteer dude, let's call him volunteer dude. Parents thought maybe they questioned his sexuality. My preceptor, the person who was my volunteer supervisor, she said no, because he used to go to the unit, her unit, in the PICU, to attend to the patients there and give them toys and stuff. And she thought no, but then when I saw him dancing, we actually danced for like a second after. I don't even know. He's probably like married now. I remember later on when I like low key, I kind of like, I didn't stalk him, but like I would check up on like his, because he had Instagram, and I figured out, I was like, I'm very good. I'm like a cyber sleuth. I can like literally, you give me a name and I can like, boom, I can find anything, you know? So like, I remember I was like, no, I need to, so I figured out he moved from the place that he worked before, and you know, I had a crush. Like, don't jip me for, you know, we all do that. If people say, oh no, I don't Google someone, no, yes they do. People go on people's Instagram and look up stuff. That's a bunch of BS if they don't. So, anyways, trying to remember what happened after that. I probably saw him in passing a few times in the hospital, but after that I kind of gave up on it. I kind of put that to, I let it sleep, I put it to rest, and I was like, the idea of him kind of just, you know, and that's another thing, falling in love with the idea of someone versus the reality. You never want to fall in love with the idea of someone. You want to get to know them and see the reality for what it is, and don't ignore red flags. Don't put someone on a pedestal and say, oh, they're, no. Like, get to know, if someone shows you who they are, believe them, as per Maya Angelou. So anyways, and that pertains to anything in life, dating, work, whatever. So, what happened with him? That's it. That was whatever. I had a weird dream about him too, which is weird. And that's another thing. So I had a weird dream about him that he was gonna, it was actually pretty serious. In the dream he had a seizure, and he had testicular cancer. Very specific dream. And I told him about it, and he never wrote. Mind you, if I got a text from a random person I had, like, not random, but someone that I hadn't talked to in a long time, and they were like nervous about something, and they said they had a bad dream about me getting sick, I'd probably write back because that's just me, but he never wrote back. So I kind of just let it lie, and that was it. Moving on in terms of dating, I'm literally going through my whole dating history. I will say this. There was a guy I did have a huge crush on in high school. He went to, so in New World, there's a school, it's called School for Advanced Studies, and it's located in the building of New World, and it's basically for super bright, ambitious, advanced placement gifted students. Like, you have to be a brain. Like, you have to know physics, calculus, trigonometry, science, biology, like everything, right? And then you might be artistic too, and you have like an extracurricular on the side or whatever. But so these kids were in like the first floor of the building, and he was on the train. Oh my god, he was like the epitome of what you think of like a surfer dude. He had the hair, like the long hair, and he would like flip it, you know. Like when Justin Bieber used to have the long hair, and he used to be like, you know, when Justin Bieber was in his like baby phase, like the song Baby, like when he's just, you know, that was the kind of hair. And I thought he was the coolest guy ever. Like, he was so chill, and he'd be reading a book. He was always reading a book on the train. He wasn't on his phone. He'd be reading a book. A man reading a book, an attractive man reading a book on the train. That was it. I was like, and so he would walk ahead of me, and I was like, and I would be like, you know, with my backpack, like, you know, so excited. He didn't know who I was at all. But then, funny, interesting story. So this is where it gets interesting. I forgot how, if someone told me his name. Oh, I told my friend. So I did have a friend in high school. She was in the dance department. She and I were like a little bit not boy crazy, but like she had a crush on a guy on the train too. He went to another school, and he was in a visual arts strand, and she was just like goo goo gaga over him. It's the same way I was kind of goo goo gaga over this other dude. And then she said, oh, and I was like, I don't know what his name is. She ended up figuring out his name. I don't know how, but she did. Oh, I remember how. Oh my god, I remember how. I told my friend, and he was a guy friend, and I think he was gay. He was in the vocal department, and I said so and so. Oh yeah, I like this guy on the train, and he's like, oh, and then so he went up to. That's how it was. He went up to him and he asked him. He said, oh, my friend kind of likes you or thinks you're cute, and I sort of I was like, oh my god, I was so embarrassed, and then I don't remember what happened after that. I don't think he never went up to me or anything. You know what? I think he had a girlfriend. I'm pretty sure. I think he had a girlfriend. So I respect him in the sense that he didn't like try to overstep that. You know, I respect. There's something. Let me tell you. There's something to be said for men that are in relationships, and solid relationships too, that have girlfriends, and then you know some let's say someone hits on them or their guy, like how it was for me, like my guy friend went up to him and was like, oh, my friend thinks you're whatever. I think he smiled at me or he was like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. And then, but he never like pursued me or anything. So I have such respect for men that do that because it shows that they have loyalty and fidelity. And that makes me that makes them even more attractive. Like I may be bummed out and be like, oh, they're taken or whatever, but it shows you that there are good men out there who are like honest and loyal. And he was in high school. This is a high school kid. You'd think that he would be like, oh yeah, whatever. I found out later on. So I found out his name. I think my friend was like, oh, what's your name, whatever, and he said he goes to SAS. And then sad thing is, though, this is kind of a sad story, so I don't know how it came to be, but I went to get a comforter at Macy's at Dadeland Mall, and his mom actually was the one who sold me the thing. I don't know how we got into conversation about it, but I said I think my parents told her, like, I go to an art school and I studied dance and I did musical theater, whatever. And I think she said, "Oh, my son goes to a school in downtown Miami." I don't know how we got to talking, but then her name, I could say her name because it's his mom. Her name was Tara, and so his mom had passed away, and I think actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think she said he had a girlfriend. He ended up going. I think she said that, and I didn't. Oh my God, I think. And I didn't want to tell her, like, oh, you're the one, like, I was crushing on your son the whole time. I don't think I told her that. I just said, I was just like, yeah, I think I've seen him on the train. And just, it's such a small world. Like, it shows you it's such a small world. And, yeah. So, I'm trying to remember the timeline, but his mother ended up passing away with cancer. It was just, and she's the one who sold me to this day. I remember it was at one of my first big girl comforters, and it was brown and it had these cute, like, it was like a beige brown color and had these like little flowers and leaves on it, and like embroidered into it. And but yeah, I don't know what he's doing now. I think the last time I checked, I think she said he was in UF or something. He went to UF. I think he had a girlfriend, and that he was, I don't know if she said his girlfriend's name was Ashley, if I'm mistaken. I think, I don't remember. I just remember, I think she said he was studying architecture or something, and he went to UF, but his mom ended up passing away, and that was really sad, and I was like, man, because my parents kept in touch with her. She was a great salesperson in the furniture area of Macy's, so, yeah, that was that's sad. But he was, that guy was, oh my God, he was cute. Like, that guy, he could be like model cute. But anyways, that was another crush I had, kind of like, I'm going through my timeline of boys or whatever. And so college time, so I worked at the hospital. You would think by me working in a hospital, I would have met like a physical therapist or like a doctor, a nurse. Nope. There was, actually, take it back, there was a doctor. Super cute, super nice. But he was a lot older than me. He was like 8 years older than me. So he's probably like, oh my God. Oh my God, he's 41. So when I first worked as a child specialist, he worked in the emergency department. I was such a nerd. Like, I was so, like, and the reason why I liked him, because he treated kids so nicely. He was so sweet to he was one of the few doctors, like, his bedside manner was, like, you can tell that he didn't think he was, like, uppity. Like, he was, like, a very wholesome, down-to-earth doctor. And he was shorter. He was shorter. He wasn't super tall. But everyone knew, like, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't know if he still works at a hospital, but, like, he's probably, like, married now, like, with kids and who knows what else. But, he was so cute. But, yeah. And I remember I did a procedure. So as a child life specialist, you go and you actually, like, you distract patients during procedures. So, like, if there was a patient having, like, like needed sutures or whatever, like had a not sutures, a laceration repair. So that's a term for if you need stitches, right? We call them string band-aids, as Charlie especially say string band-aids. So I remember like he was doing, so when I did Child Life, I did kind of like, I decided to become a yoga teacher because of Child Life, because I wanted to learn techniques to help kids relax. So I learned progressive muscle relaxation, visualization techniques, guided meditation, mindfulness, and like I was trained on how to do that. And then so I kind of, what I would do is I literally treated it like it was a yoga session. So I'd get my Pandora thing on my phone and I'd play music. Um, I'd play music. What's it called? I play music on my Pandora on my phone, and I play. And the name was Yuri Sazonov. He was a great nature artist or whatever. He would make instrumental music with like nature sounds and whatnot. So yeah, I'm trying to remember. But I remember I was doing a procedure with him, and like the patient fell asleep, and I'll never forget. He said, "Ah, this damn, it gets me." Like the fact he said, "Oh, if he falls asleep during this procedure," because he was literally suturing the kid. He was putting stitches. So to give a backstory, when you do stitches for a patient, there's a whole process. Like you have to irrigate the. I'm sorry if you use medical terms. You irrigate the wound, meaning like you get a splash guard, you get a syringe, you fill it with a lot of water in a basin, you go, and then you spray it, you irrigate it, you flush it out, you clean it. You basically you make it sterile. You create a sterile field. They put like a blue drape. We used to call it a superhero cape, and then they use local anesthetic, and they use something called lidocaine in a syringe, and it numbs the air. It numbs the skin, right? And that's the scary part for kids. So they do that, and then they get betadine, which is we would call it brown soap, because it basically is an antiseptic, so it cleans out the wound or whatever. So while all of that was happening, I was guiding the patient through the whole procedure, and I'm with the guy, super cute doctor that like everyone knows, and I'm just like, I was so nervous, and I was trying to like do a good job in Child Life, and then he was there, and then the kid's being injected. We call it, because when the lidocaine goes in the skin, it feels very warm. It may sting a little bit because it might feel a pinch, but it feels warm. And then he was literally the kid fell asleep. Like he legit, I put on my music. And I remember I would put my hand over on the patient's like chest to help keep him grounded, and I tried to like secretly do like Reiki on kids. I don't think they knew that. The hospital didn't know that, but like when I was dealing with patients and stuff from a spiritual perspective, I would do like Reiki on them to try to like calm them down. Basically, you're using your energy to help make. If you're spiritual, you'd understand, but like you basically use your own energy to help alleviate or heal a part of a person's body, or like cleanse their energy or whatever. So I would do that, and the patient ended up falling asleep, and I remember the doctor said, "Oh, if he ends up falling asleep, we're getting champagne and something." And I was like, I know he was joking, but like part of me was like, but never like he came around to our area a few times, but like he never ever like did anything or said anything. So I just kind of gave up on that. And plus, like I said, he was older than me. But he was so cute. Oh my god. Anyways, so that was one of my doctor crushes. I did go out with, when I was working as a Child Life activity assistant in the main playroom, they had this thing called Radio Lollipop, and it was basically, it's the in-house DJ disc jockey station for the hospital. And I remember, I'm not gonna say his name, but I was basically in charge of like registration, like sign in and sign out for this play space area. And it was huge. It was an indoor and outdoor. Like I had volunteers that I supervised and managed. I was responsible for administrative tasks and upkeeping, inventory. It was an important job. Like, and the play space was a lot of foot traffic. You had to be very mindful of like infection control, things like that. So, you had patients coming in with like cancer. You had patients coming in with kidney failure. You had patients coming in sometimes if they had like an infectious disease, they had to be like, it was like for infection control, they had to stay isolated. That was different. But basically you had to be very like on your game and stuff, and focused and organized. But anyways, so I think it was Wednesdays actually, Tuesdays or Wednesdays, he would come and he would have another whole crew of volunteers, and he was pre-med, and he was, I thought he was so cute. I'm trying to think of someone to compare him to, like a celebrity that I can't think of. I don't know. He had like tan skin, really like dark black eyes. Um, he did his hair like a lot of guys back then used to do like their hair with like a little like thingy, like if you go like this and they make it kind of not like a mohawk, but yeah, he did that. And then I think he was, from what I remember, he wasn't very flirty with me, but he would show kind of some interest. I don't remember how we got into. Oh, I know. Okay, there we go. I remember. I was like, how did that get initiated? I never realized that sometimes people, the way I've met people has been through other people. I just realized that now. The ones that at least I actually connected with. He was, so there was a volunteer party, the volunteer recognition party, and I saw he was dancing with another girl. I told my supervisor, I was like, I don't know why I told her this, but she was the one, she oversaw the play spaces, and she would oversee the payroll and all the HR stuff for our positions, but it was originally her role, so she knew him because she was in the role previously that I had for the administrative assistant or whatever. So I told her, I was like, so and so, I think he's so cute, or like I think he's, I had a crush on him or whatever, and so then she went to him and she told him that, like, I never really, when I'm in the moment, it takes me back to like when I was there, and this was so basically it was a big volunteer party. This was at the Biltmore Hotel in Coral Gables, and I remember, I'll never forget, like I wore, I think, a blue dress. It was my blue dress I got off of the show. It was, so the show Shark Tank, they featured this store called Red Dress Boutique, and it was such a cute dress. I don't have it anymore. I gave it away. I donated it. But it was like my favorite dress. It was so cute. It was like, it had an Aztec tribal like thing on the top with cute straps, like satin straps, and like blue, sea blue, like turquoise flowy stuff. And then yeah, so she told him, and then he came up to me and he says, "Oh, little birdie told me that like you were interested in me." And I was like, "Yeah." And then we danced to, I don't remember if we danced salsa. And mind you, and he was short too. Like, he was shorter. He was on the shorter side too. Like, I never really, being short. The only time I realized height got to me was when I worked with a coworker who said she only dates people who were like 6 feet and up. She only dated tall people. And now, before then, I didn't care if you were short, tall, super, not like super chubby, but like I didn't really, it didn't make a difference to me. So I'm trying to remember what happened with him. I think I was 23 at the time, or 24. He was pre-med, and like I said, he volunteered at the Radio Lollipop. We exchanged numbers. We talked. We went on a date. True, he took me. Oh, I remember what happened. Where did we go? We went. I think we got lunch at a tea place on Miracle Mile in Coral Gables. I know we must have done other things too. Why am I forgetting this? We went somewhere else. I don't remember what the first date was. But we did talk. He did live far from me. He lived in Hollywood, Florida, or like Broward. So we didn't really, the only time we really saw each other was like if he was at the hospital or whatnot. So that was kind of like, the distance was kind of far, and my parents they didn't really want me to like drive on the highway like ever. My mom had this thing about driving on the highway, so I never really drove on the highway ever, or like the interstate or whatever, like until I was an adult, like older adult, which is sad because everyone drives on the highway. So anyways, we went to a sandwich place. He didn't dress, I'll be honest, he didn't dress like, I remember he wore an Eddie Bauer. Was it Eddie Bauer? What's that? What's the brand with like the tigers and all the colorful? It looks like a tattoo on your shirt. I think it was Eddie Bauer. He wore that on our first date. That didn't really leave a good impression for me. Oh, you know what it was? I remember. we talked for like a long time after the volunteer party, and then he's like, "Oh, this is your car," and then whatever, and then we exchanged numbers, and then I think for some that's what it was. I remember I googled him. I am a cyber sleuth. I googled him, and I found old pictures of him on MySpace, and he was like, he basically had like earrings, and he was like, he was doing like a weird like, with his face sticking out with some girl, and I was like, no, immediately when I see a red flag on anybody, I'm just like, no. I don't even give him. I'm just like, no, no. I'm like, I don't want to. So I think I was already like taken aback by that, and I kind of sensed that he kind of was. Oh, and then someone told me, was it him or somebody said something about him that he was like, he hooked up with a lot of girls in like the child life department or something, or he was a bit of a flirt, and then that kind of got me thinking. I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna like work out because I don't want to date a guy that's a player. Um, so what all? Um, I don't know what happened after that. Oh, I think I told him. We went on the sandwich date or whatever. He didn't really dress like too whatever. I think if you're a man, like I don't know. To me, you don't need to look like you know dropped out of a Brooks Brothers catalog. You don't need to be super bougie with like all the tons of cologne or whatever. Even though I do love cologne. If a man wears cologne, it's over. Like it's bad. Like I can never. If a man has cologne around me and yeah, I need to stay like 10 feet away from him because then things will things will happen and my boundaries will go out the window. So anyways, so he dressed like in a t-shirt with like sneakers. He just didn't look like he put any effort forth, right? Like I think a man when a man cares, like they have effort, they'll wear like a button down shirt, maybe like the sleeves rolled up, maybe a watch and like nice slacks and like loafers or something. I don't know, because that's the way I was in I think also growing up like going to a Catholic school, people did dress pretty decently, so that was kind of the way I imagine a guy dressing, like with class, like you put together, you take pride in your appearance, but you're not so like I look good, kind of cocky, like arrogant, just like you're confident in yourself. But anyways, he dressed like in that shirt, jeans, sneakers. I was like, um, and I think I was gonna at that point after I saw his pictures on the MySpace thing, I was like, no, I was like, I don't think this is gonna work out, because right there it just gave me an indication of his background, like his history and whatever. Um, so yeah, but then I think he sensed that, and so he said his mom worked for Chase Bank, I think, as a regional director for Chase Bank, and she got like perks and stuff, and I'll never forget. And this is where I tell myself, I go, man, this was so not low of me, but like it's not like my character to do this, because I'm very like I try to be altruistic and empathic or whatever towards people, or empathetic. And so his mom got tickets to a basketball game for the Miami Heat, and it was D Wade, it was LeBron James, and Chris Bosh, and I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I was so like, and I was planning on breaking up with him, and I was like, I don't really, not breaking up, just like stopping talking to him or whatever. And then I'll never forget, I continued to talk to him, because I was like, okay, I was like, well, fine, I was like, why not? And so we went to the game, and I remember he bought me a margarita. It was a lot of fun. Like, I was over the moon. I was so happy. I was on my bucket list to go to a basketball game, because I have yet to go to a football game. That's another thing on my bucket list. I want to go to a football game. I've never been to a football game. I've been to a baseball game. I've been to a tennis tournament, like the Miami Open, but I haven't gone to a football game. Actually, no. Did I go to a football game? I don't know. Maybe at FIU. I don't remember. But I wanted to go like a real football game. Like either a college football game or whatever, because I haven't. So what happened after that? Oh, okay, so we come back from said date. We pulled up to the driveway. It's nighttime. This wood did it, which is just so funny, because looking at it now, it's like I've done a complete 360 or 180, and it's like when it comes to sex and whatever, I'm not like a whore, but like my whole perspective on it has changed. And so, um, we were in the car, and he says, I forgot if he wanted to come inside, and I said, or like to talk. I think like he wanted to hang out, like in my room or something, like in the house. And I was like, yeah, my parents are probably sleeping now. Like that wouldn't work. And he's like, oh, will that ever happen? Like, will we ever be able to be alone? You know, like, and I was like, yeah. I was like, no. I was like, that will never happen. Like, and in my bedroom, I was like, no. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, I'd be like, you'd have to marry me if that's gonna happen, because my dad will never allow that. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, have you, I don't know how we got in the topic of conversation. He's like, wait, he asked me, he stopped me, and he's like, so this is where I think I'm going to divulge this at this point. He asked me, we were in the car, and he stops me, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and he goes, wait, have you had sex yet? And I was like, and I was 23 at the time, or 24, and I was like, and he's like, how many has it been? Like, and I'm like, and he was putting his finger, and he's like, 0? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, I was wondering. He said, I kind of wondered. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, how many, girls have you been with? And I was like, is it more than like a handful? And I was like, and he's like, I was like, is it more than 2 handful? And the guy was 24. He was turning 25. And I was like, you slept with more than 10 people? And he's like, he didn't really say yes or no. And he's like, and I'm like, yeah, well, I don't think you'll be able to like, I was like, I'd have to be married to you. And he's like, oh yeah, well, he's like, my mom's pretty like lenient. She lets me like have people over, and because he lived at home too. But she's like, oh, he said, my mom's pretty lenient. Like, they let people come over, and like she's like, she'll even let girls stay over. And he's like, I always try to have like breath mints in the nightstand for. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, this guy's so different than me. So I was like, I'm not gonna, I just told myself, I was like, I don't think he and I were on the same page, because at the time and which is fine, I wasn't ready for that. To be honest, I was always kind of scared of sex. I did, this is super personal, I can't believe I'm gonna put this on the internet, but you know what, if it helps somebody, then why not? In terms of sexual experiences and stuff, I was very much a late bloomer with that, but I did, like, in terms of feelings and hormones and stuff, it got turned on a little bit, like when I was like 19, 20 years old. I'll put it this way, there was Cinemax on the TV, you do the math and, figure that out. So, yeah, that was kind of my first foray. Like, it was on cinema, it was on HBO, and I was late at night, and I was scrolling through, and I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, what's going on? And it just, sorts of things happened internally to me that I was like, and it felt really good. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to go too much into it, because then it's going to be too personal. But that was, like, my first real, like, if you get an idea of what I'm talking about, when things go, so, and mind you, there was no one was touching me, nothing was happening. I was just watching, and I'm like, I was sitting on the edge of the couch, and my body, it was like a wave of just pure bliss and pleasure. So, yeah, that was that experience. But I'd never, so I've had very short-lived, like, encounters with people. I'm very picky about who I go out with. Because I've been always kind of very intuitive and discerning in terms of, like, character, like, judgment of character. And I've worked at restaurants, I've worked at different places, and, I never, especially work, I never felt like I wanted to ever date anyone I worked with. I had a very, like, strict rule for myself where I never wanted to date anyone I worked with, because I think it can make things complicated and murky, and some people, like, and I've been on the other side of it, where I've been friends with people who did date, and then if they break up, it becomes a big deal. So I'm like, I never wanted to date anyone I worked with. I made a promise to myself in that respect. What else? I'm trying to think. I was going to say his name. Well, after him. So, still hadn't had any terms of sexual activity, things like that. College, it just even, I was stalked. I did get, that's on the more dangerous side of things, I was stalked by a volunteer at the hospital. He was a playroom volunteer, and he was into business. He was Hispanic. He had a very thick accent. I don't know if he was Colombian or Ecuadorian, but that was scary. He found no. What happened? How did it work? I worked in the playroom, and then he decided he wanted to change floors to work in the ER because I had worked in the ER, and he ended up, like, he said, "Oh no, I don't want to do the ER." I realized it wasn't really the best fit for him, and I think he just shadowed me because he wanted to talk to me or whatever. I don't know. It was weird. And then I had a resume online, and he ended up, I remember, I don't know if it was a resume or something, because I was babysitting at the time. I was like a child care provider for a lot of different families. And I remember I was babysitting once for a family in Coconut Grove. And then all of a sudden, I get a text message and it said, "Hi, his name started with the letter A. Like, whatever. And I was like, and I just blocked the number. I was like, oh my God. And he's like, "I hope you don't think it was too forward. I found your number online." I was like, I was like, oh my God. So that was and then he ended up calling the emergency department over like 10 times. The ER secretary was like, "Ashley, you have someone calling for you. We don't know who he is, but he keeps calling this number. Can you like talk to him or whatever?" And I was like, yeah, I was like, "Do not." And then so I ended up going to the volunteer department and telling my volunteer director, or I was working there at the time, but I told the volunteer director, "Please, the situation is happening. They're calling he called the ER hospital outpatient line." And I was like, and then I also had another incident in terms of another person that kind of stalked me. That was, he worked in the hospital as well, and he was a security guard. Go figure. He was a security guard at the hospital, and what I've realized is sometimes people misconstrue kindness for interest or whatever, and so, I get it on their perspective, like, if you like someone, you want to be around them and you want to talk to them, but, like, you can't, like, just follow somebody, like, you have to be respectful, right? Like, I ended up working in the NICU, and he would follow, like, he would go to the NICU, like, he would appear at the NICU and then sit at the counter and, like, put his head on the counter and be like, "Hi, oh, how's your day going?" Whatever, and I'd be like, "Oh, it's good." And I remember I told my parents, I was like, "I think someone stopped, and so I don't remember what happened after that. I think, I remember, I got away from working in the ER, and I started working more in the NICU. I became NICU child life full time, and so he stopped coming around as often, and my schedule kind of changed a little bit. So, and I was there later into the night, and I think he worked the day, so it worked out. Like, it didn't bother me anymore too much. But yeah. So that's on the flip side of it, of dating, when you have people who take it to the extreme, and so fortunately, the guy that was going to the ER, calling the ER or whatever, the hospital, I told the director, and she's like, he was never allowed to step foot ever again, like, anywhere near me. He couldn't step near the hospital. Basically, like, a unofficial restraining order is what happened, how that worked out. And I'm trying to think of anyone else. There was someone I went to middle school with that he ended up becoming a doctor, and I had such a crush on. He was so sweet. He was like one of the nicest boys in middle school ever, and he dated a girl that was also really sweet. I had nothing bad to say about those people. Those were like one of the only people. They were a couple, and mind you, we were in like I told myself, these people are gonna get married. They're gonna be like childhood sweethearts. I don't know where they are now or what they're doing, but he was a doctor there. He was doing, I think, not residency, but he was in med school, and he went to FIU, and I was like, oh my God. And I remember I went to the computer lab at the hospital, and he signed in at the same computer that I was on, and I was like, because his name would be there, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I can't believe so was, nothing ever happened. But trying to remember what happened. I'm just trying to go through my dating history in terms of, and I know that I am going to talk more about the sexy stuff and all that, and like trying to make it fun and spicy or whatever, and juicy, but yeah. So I'm trying to remember anything after that experience. God, oh my God, it actually got a little hot for like the first time ever. Oh my God, summer might be coming. What is this? What is this? Oh, my toe. I was like, why is there... I think my toe is... Oh, my toe! Oh, I gotta fix that. I'm gonna put it over here. So I forgot what I was saying, where I was at. Um, oh, so at this point in my life, I was working in the hospital, and then I'm not gonna go into it. I did have a bit of another stalking situation, but I'm not gonna get into that because I actually had to involve law enforcement with that. And to this day, I still don't know what is happening with that. But it basically got so scary that I had to move out of state and yeah, leave my home. And we're not gonna get too much into that, but you know, just be mindful. This is what I'm gonna say is that heed the red flags. If your gut is telling you something about somebody, listen to that, because it could it could go south so easily. It can just yeah, your life can change completely because of one person. They could basically, hi, baby, come here. Do you want to sit up here? Do you want to sit with me? Do you want to come? Do you want to come up here? I'm sorry, my dog just entered the room. Do you want to sit on the blankets? My dog might make an appearance. Do you want to make an appearance? Come here. Come on, let's go. Good girl. Go. Sit. But don't sit. I need to. What? Is your tail wagging? Do you want to sit here? Come here. Go here. Oh, no, she's not. So she's going to sit over here. She's going to sit. Hi. Hello. Oh, okay. She's like, so anyways, moving forward. On the flip side of it, the dangers of, I'm going to call it the dangers of dating. Just, yeah, be careful, because some people are, man, and I go back to my life and I go, had I not, I don't want to cry, I'm not going to cry, I might cry, had I not, I'm going to say pursued somebody, it's crazy just to think one person could do so much to your life. And I did not want to, I didn't expect, I don't really want to talk about it, so just be mindful. Meaning, like, if you feel something about somebody and your gut is telling you heed, don't, and I ignored that. I had, not warning signs, but my gut was like, don't, because, me, I have this, it's not a God complex, but I feel like I want to help people that are hurting. And I'm pretty good, I can sense whether somebody is like, whether it's a guy or girl, that's what makes dating really hard. When you're intuitive or you're empathic, it makes dating hard because you already know people before you like actually meet them. And if you're psychic, right, it makes it even harder. Like, let's say there's clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance. I've always felt like I've had an ability of claircognizance. So basically it's, stuff about somebody before ever, like, you don't need to really talk to them that much. You kind of just, you see them and you know stuff. And if they don't tell you stuff, you can pick up on the vibes anyways without them saying a word to you about it. Just petting my dog because I'm happy that she's sitting on the bed with me. And I'm not really going to go into that situation. Just heed, like, if your gut tells you something about someone, heed that. It doesn't matter how good looking they are. It doesn't matter how popular they are. It doesn't matter how much you feel like you can help them and change them. Listen to your gut, because it could literally cost you your life. Because some people don't have the maturity. Some women or men, they can be so narcissistic that they will never ever see it the way that like, they think that they have an authority, right? Or they think that they'll be able to flip the script and the narrative in some way and then make you out to be the bad guy when you're the good person. And that's the dangers of dating, when things go wrong, right? When things go right, it's really wonderful and you meet the love of your life and everything's great. It's a totally different story when you experience the dark side of dating. And I can't really say I dated a guy. It was more so like, I'm not going to get into it too much. I'm not. There's no need. Just that I'll say this. I sensed that he was a player. I got the vibes heavy because he would flirt a lot in front, like with students and stuff like that. And, me, very kind of gullible and incredulous and naive, I thought, oh, he's, like it'll be different, you know. And I'm not gonna cry. It's just, my life changed a lot. A lot. Um, but, I've grown a lot. I've grown a lot as a person. Um, and, I'm sorry, I didn't really think I would cry because you think you're healed and then you relive stuff and it comes back and, um, so I'm just gonna, so on a lighter note, I moved out of state and, I moved to Philadelphia. I tried to do dating there, didn't really work out too much. I did go on some dates. I went on a date with a guy I think he was younger than me and he pretended to be older. He was very skinny. He was a skinny kid. I ended up paying for his coffee. Um, that was interesting. I went on the date, and at first he suggested we walk along the river. So there's a river in Philadelphia called the Schuylkill River, and I lived near it. And he wanted to walk at night, and my coworkers were the ones that said, "Yeah, Ashley, I don't think that would be too smart because even if there's lights," and I told him, I was like, "No, but there's signs that say that there's cameras and they watch," and they're like, "Yeah, you don't want to." She's like, one of my coworkers was like, "Do you know him well?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Oh, it's a date." She's like, "Well, go to like a coffee shop or something." And I was like, "Okay." And it's funny, when I was on a date with him, he kept putting on lip balm, and I'm like, maybe his lips are really dry, but I think he thought we were gonna like make out or something. But when we get to the coffee shop, it was such a oh my gosh, this place, it's not really a coffee shop, it's a restaurant, and it has the best gelato. It's basically like if you went to Italy and you went to like a piazza in Rome, you know. And yeah, so we had, and I never forget, like we ordered, right? I think, I don't know if we got gelato or not, but we did. I think I got gelato. He didn't want gelato, and we order cappuccinos or whatever, and then so the time comes to pay, and I'm just like, I didn't go to get my card right away. I try to be, not that I'm frugal, and not that I'm like, in terms of gender norms and stuff, usually traditionally if you go out with somebody, the guy pays, that's what it's supposed to be, right? The guy, which I feel like now we're in such a modern day age that I feel like if you split with somebody, it's better because it takes the pressure off, because then it's like the guy has to like supply you and fund you. It's like, no, like I think for me, I don't know. And if a guy does decide to pay, and I know traditionally my mom would definitely contest with me, she'd be like, no, a guy needs to pay. And I'm like, but then that puts so much pressure on a dude. Like, why does that guy have to pay? Is it like the girl? What if she works? Why can't the girl pay, Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. I am a feminist, but like, so anyways, the guy goes like, he doesn't act to go get his wallet. He stands with his arm on the counter, like with his arm and his hand on his hip, like this. And I'm like, and he, like, as of waiting for me to take the thing, I'm like, okay. And he's like, yeah, I don't have my card with me, I left my card. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, oh, no, no, no worries, whatever. And that's the moment I knew. I was like, and mind you, we could have split it, and he didn't. I don't know, he said something, oh, I don't have my credit card on me or something, which was BS because, so that right there, I was like, forget about it. And then I think he even thought he wanted to like hang out again, and I'm like, yeah, I gave him a hug, I think, and I was like, thank you, that was so much fun. And then I went back to my apartment, and like we went our separate ways. And after that, like, I knew, I was like, because the attraction goes, and I'm not that kind of person. I'm very low key when it comes to dates and stuff. Like, I'm very much okay, like, if I went to like a casual like burger joint, like literally like like not a McDonald's. I know people don't go to McDonald's on dates, but like for me, I don't care. Like if I went to like a picnic, or if a dude was like, let's go like mini golfing, or like I don't know, I like mini golf, or like not a movie, like something not super like even if they wanted to go to a park and like sit at a park like and talk or whatever, not like at night if you know, but like in the day, but like I'm not high maintenance at all. Like I don't need a guy to buy down, like I do, because the thing is, when you're an independent woman, you can get these things yourself. So like and especially when I was working like in the corporate job and I had money coming in or whatever, I was able to buy like the bottle of wine that I wanted. If I wanted to buy myself flowers, I can buy myself flowers. If I wanted to buy a cappuccino, I can buy myself. So I'm never the one to be like, oh, they have to buy me this, and this. So I'm like, whatever someone can afford, or if we want to split it, that's how I see it. I will say some people would probably can disagree with me because they'll think, oh, but that's typical, like a man needs to pay for a woman. I have been on dates where like I went on a date with someone a few weeks ago, and so I'm in Vermont, and Canada's like right there, and he said he was Canadian. I mean, I don't know. At this point, I wonder anyone on a dating app if they're really who they say they are. And I hadn't thought of this at the moment, but he came down, whatever, and we ate at a restaurant, and I ended up I paid for the bill because he said that he didn't have he had Canadian money, and I was like, so I hadn't even thought about that, so don't, Vermont, if you're not someone who already has like a life established, or like if you're single, like unless you're studying at a university, Vermont is very much a place like if you want to retire here, like if you have a family and you're like, hey, I want to live in the boonies, or I want to live in country style living, I say I'm all for whatever. But for me, I did it because I just wanted to get away from people. Like I needed to get away from city life because it was just, yeah. Anyways, so that date was kind of, in Philadelphia. I went on another date with another guy. We went to a pet shelter. That was fun. We actually met at a pet shelter. We walked a dog. He took me to Dunkin' Donuts. I got in his pickup truck. We went to Dunkin' Donuts, and we had Dunkin' Donuts, and we had a really good conversation. I can't say, in terms of attractive, like, if was the spark there, like, attraction, I don't know. Oh, I did go on another date, too, with another guy. We went to Fishtown. We went to a pizza place. Zero chemistry. This is why dating now, which I'm going to do a golden rules of dating thing, I think you talk to the person on an app. Don't give your phone number out. I read online people should do like a second phone number, like a Google phone number, because you don't know really what they're all about. And then you do that, and then you maybe talk a little bit more. You do a video chat. So one thing good about the apps, they do have a video chat feature. You don't actually have to like use your phone number. And then once you meet them, then maybe you say, hey, like if the date goes well, you give the phone number. Do not, I've learned this the hard way, do not sleep with someone on a first date. I'm going to get to my point in that sense of where that's going. But yeah, I did go on a few dates in Philadelphia. I went on a pet date. I went on a date to a pizzeria in Fishtown. He paid. Kudos to that guy. I'm going to give him kudos because I just realized he actually paid. He just looked really different though from his picture. Really different. Very different. And then I think we got ice cream, and I paid for the ice cream. We went to an ice cream shop. And I remember he told me he wasn't like, his mental health was kind of like, I think he apologized and he said, I'm sorry if I'm so serious. He's like, I'm kind of dealing with mental health issues. And I was like, okay. And he said he was like depressed or something, and I was like, I respected that. Like I didn't want to. And he offered me his jacket because I was cold. He actually offered, and I was like, man, he did all the right things. It's just the personality was like, the personality was not there. Like I'm very like, I'm an ambivert, so I'm like an introvert or extrovert, meaning like, I'm quiet and reclusive for certain situations, but more often than not, I'm outgoing. I'm very gregarious. I like to meet people. And I like to socialize and stuff, but I also covet my private time. But anyways, I realized for me, you need to have some sort of personality, or else I'm not gonna, like, especially in conversations, like, if you're on like, I can tell someone, it's so easy to, one, to gauge someone's interest in you, and two, their ability to hold a conversation and communicate, and their personality. You can literally, through a whole conversation, you can figure that out in an app. And it's like, if people, especially women, if we're going to accept the bare minimum of a guy going, yeah, cute dog, and then that's all they're going to say, bro, like, set the bar higher. Be a high value person. And if you're going to be single and alone and you're like, but I don't want to be alone, no, learn to be lonely, and you're going to meet shitty people. Not shitty people, you're going to meet people who don't jive with your vibe, and that's why we date. We date to figure out, hey, this person works, this one doesn't. And when someone shows you who they are, and this is advice that I have to heed, when they show you who they are the first time, believe them. I've learned that the hard way. Literally, I'm in situations where I'm still just trying to get over it, of trying to survive, like, I'm not going to go into that much of the past, but yeah, like just everyone has the emotional like GPS like guidance system in their heart, like you have it and your gut tells you listen to that. Don't ignore it. Don't say, oh, don't fall in love with the potential of somebody, don't fall in love with the idea. No, heed that, listen to that. Because you could end up in a situation like, for example, Gabby Petito. I think I don't know if it was Brian Laundrie or Ryan Laundrie, but that is such an unfortunate case, and the signs are there. And sometimes you say, oh no, but I'll stick with them, they can change. No, they have to choose to change. And to be honest, it's like if you give people too many chances, they're gonna walk all over you, because they're gonna go, oh, I know that they're gonna forgive me, I know that the whatever, that's Ashley's a nice girl, she's not gonna. No, because you will end up in a situation where either it'll be domestic violence, or you will be in a situation where your safety will be compromised. And if some of the guys that you go, if they're smart, or if you're a man and you're rushing and a woman, man or woman, people are really cunning and conniving. I've heard stories about men, like women breaking up with men, and the man wrecking her apartment, vandalizing her stuff, breaking into the apartment. I mean, bad stuff, like really bad stuff. Slandering someone's name, defaming their character. I mean, it's bad. People are, and everyone's at a different point in their journey. Everyone's trying, right? We all want to meet somebody, whatever. But if someone's not ready for you, don't make them. Don't push them. Don't force them to like you. Don't force them to let it be. There was literally a quote. Where's my phone? Where is my phone? No. I don't know where. Oh, it's right here. I was literally like, right. Okay. So there's a quote that says, hold up. I literally wrote, it's like, if they ghosted you, let them stay. It's like, what does it say? If they ghosted you, let them stay dead, or something like that. I've been trying to keep, okay. No, where is it? Oh, if they ghost you, don't be bothered. Just respect the dead. I thought that was really funny. And it's true, because how many times, and this has happened to me, where you go, I see potential in people. Like, I see people for who they are, not who they or not who they pretend to be, right? Like, I can see them for who they are. And especially if you're a card reader, if you're psychic, or if you're intuitive, 10 times more. It's amplified. So I've, unfortunately, being an empathic person, but also intuitive, I'm like, oh, I'll give them a chance. No. When they show you who they are, and you sense if someone's cheating, if you sense someone's being dishonest with you, let it be. Don't resurrect the dead, which I'm gonna put that on my thing. Don't resurrect the dead. Like, if something died, don't resurrect it. Resurrect the dead. Okay, if something died, don't resurrect the dead. In terms of dating, I'm just because that's what's gonna happen, is that you're going to be left brokenhearted, because if they, as an adult, have not done the shadow work and the inner work to heal themselves, what's going to happen is that they're going to project their insecurities onto you, and they're going to give you mixed signals, wishy-washy behavior, indecisiveness. And I know this because I was on the receiving end. Like, I was on the receiving end, and also I was kind of, well, no, I was always on the receiving end, because if I sensed someone was being disingenuous, I would cut them off. And then if they come back to my life, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll give them a chance or whatever. No, I think, if it's dead, let it stay dead. Which actually, oh, that was going to be another video I was going to do about ghosting and stuff. Because it's like, should you go back to an ex? Should you whatever? There's a lot of things, You have to be if you're going to go back to someone, you have to be very level-headed and be very nonchalant and keep it very surface level. I'm talking like, I'm the kind of person where, like, I'm very talkative and chatty, and I give people the chances, so it's like I remind myself to scale and tone it back. So yeah, don't do what I do. Keep it simple, stupid. Think Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid, because what's gonna happen is that you're gonna overly give, right? You're gonna you're gonna go into it with good intentions, so what's gonna happen is that because that person doesn't know themselves, they're gonna pull back. And then you're gonna take it personally, and then you're gonna think, oh, it's you, but really it's not you, it's them, because they're not ready for you, right? And that's usually why people break up anyways, because there's incompatibility, there's infidelity or dishonesty or whatever, or there's secrets that people aren't saying. So it's like, until someone can fully show up as them true, authentic selves in a relationship, I like to say if two people, how do you say this? There's a lot of people that say, oh, soulmates, when two halves, when you find your other half and two halves come together. I don't like to think of it like that. I take a more yogic approach, which is like when two wholes come together, magic happens. Like two people who are happy and whole come together and they unite and they enter a spiritual partnership, or like that's a healthy partnership. But when people come together and you're constantly wondering, this, that, it's probably not going to work. You have to, and everyone's gonna go through like situationships, friends with, like, if you don't, like, I recommend people do that because you grow a lot, you learn a lot in your character, and there's immense growth in that. But if you carry on it too long, you're gonna find yourself trapped in a very lackluster, one-sided relationship where someone's gonna just keep you around and string you along because they don't have the emotional bandwidth or maturity to say, hey, you know what, I'm not ready for this quite yet, or I'm in a relationship with someone else and I don't want to let it go, but I'm not happy, and I'm scared about letting it go because I do love that person, but I'm not in love with them anymore. Because you can love someone, but you might not be in love with them. That's different. Like, I can say, I love Santa Claus. I love Christmas. I'm not in love with Santa. I love Jesus. Jesus is great, but I'm not in love with Jesus. So it's kind of like that. But anyways, I'm going back to my timeline. Philadelphia. It was like 3 people I went. It was right? 3 people. I matched. Sorry. Okay, no. I go back. I matched with another dude who said that he was like a doctor, but then he was like taking forever to do. So when you become a physician, you have to do the USMLE. You have to go this whole process of like basically different milestones and points where, like, a checkpoint, like, you have to do this and you do this USMLE, then you do the next one. He was at the point where he hadn't passed his boards yet, so he wasn't really he was a doctor, like, he did whatever, but he didn't do his boards yet. I don't even think he did residency. And I think he liked to gamble a lot, but we were on the phone for like 4 hours and we had great conversations, and probably one of the better conversations I've talked with. And he was very cute, like, really handsome guy, and he was like Hindu or Indian or something like that. And I don't discriminate when it comes to like dating. At this point, I'm like, if you're a decent bro, I'm not gonna discriminate against you. Like, if you are who you say you are, and you're, I would say straight. I prefer to date straight men, but like, you can be. That's another video I'm gonna do, is a straight woman dating bi men who haven't told me they're bi, but I suspect them being bi. It's like, is that possible? Does it work out? That'll be another video. But yeah, I had a good conversation with that guy, but then he was getting really attached, so I was like, this is not healthy, so I broke it off. And also I didn't like the fact that he gambled a lot on DraftKings. So anyways, moving forward, who else did I match with? I matched with a guy, I think he had a twin. I think he was a police officer, if I'm not mistaken. He was really cute. We had a good conversation, but then inside, internally, I broke down, and like, I was going through a lot, so it didn't really work out. And I told him, I was like, I'm going through some stuff, and I'm not ready to date or whatever, like, emotionally. So I was like, thank you so much, whatever. That was that. I did meet a guy at a gas station though. So I went on a day trip, or a few day trip, to a horse ranch. It was like a spiritual horse ranch, equine therapy retreat. And on the way to that, my car broke down in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania. Not my car, the SUV I was renting. It was a Chevrolet Trax. That was not fun. That was definitely but it turned into a good memory because I broke down right at this gas station. The guy was so like, and this, let me tell you, this is where, like, you can be, and I don't think he was like a model, but he was so nice and so kind. It just, like, I ended up writing a letter to so his parents own the gas station. I wrote a letter to him saying, like, thank you so much for, like, helping me because I remember his name. I'm not gonna say his name, but he was like, oh my god, he had the sweetest smile, and was so kind and like so nice. And he fixed the tire, and he didn't charge me like exorbitant amounts of money. And so I wrote him a letter, and I said, thank you so much for like the service. I told his parents. So I wrote the letter to his parents saying, this letter's for your son. I just wanted to say thank you so much. You made a really terrible, tragic situation for me a lot better. You eased my anxiety, and you raised a really wonderful son. Like, he's a good guy, right? I told his parents that in the letter, because his parents owned the gas station. They owned, I think, a lot in that area. And then, I remember, I don't know if, because I said, I wrote him and I said I was going to be moving to Virginia. And I said, here's my number if you ever want to connect or whatever. I ended up getting a text message, and it said, hey, this is so-and-so. I really appreciated your letter. Thanks so much. He goes, I actually have a girlfriend, but I really appreciated what you said to me. And he said, best of luck in Virginia. And I was like, dude, upstanding guy. I was like, every man that I knew before can take a cue from this guy. And he never wrote me after that, but he took the time to acknowledge my letter. He extended gratitude. He was courteous, and to this day I'm like, bro, that girl, whoever the girl is so lucky, because what a nice, and I'm telling you, he wasn't like he had like longer hair. He was kind of dirty and greasy. He was skinny, like tall. He had his head, I don't say his head on backwards. He had a hat on backwards, and I was like, what a nice man he was. So it showed me, I was like, there are good men out there, and he didn't pursue me, he didn't whatever, he let it be, but he was cordial enough and kind enough and considerate enough to say, hey, thank you so much for your letter, I wish you the best of luck or whatever. That's an upstanding guy. But nowadays we have these men who, lack fidelity and carry on, fake relationships and stuff, or like, cheat behind their wives or girlfriends. Unless they're in an open relationship, that's different. A lot of people are in polyamorous, ethical, non-monogamy, whatever the fuck it's called. I don't know if I could say fuck. But anyways, so, what else? Is it still gonna rain? Bro, it said, I swear to God, like, it was not, it said it wasn't gonna rain, and then it rained. I don't understand the weather here. So that was Philadelphia, right? Philadelphia, move on to Virginia. Oh. I don't even know where to begin with that. I was at a really, I was going through a lot, and, I'm not gonna cry. I might cry again. I don't know. There were people who the best way, I was bullied, but that's all I'm gonna call it. It's worse than that, but I'm just gonna call it bullied. Let's just keep it that way, right? And I was on the outs with my family for certain reasons. I'm trying not to cry, because just when I go back and I relive it, it makes me sad. And I was seeking comfort in like solidarity and peace. There was this stuff. With other people, like not other people. I told myself, so I'm just gonna keep it real. I was basically, my safety, I felt like was being threatened. I was fearing for my life in certain ways, and things that were happening to me that were unexplainable. I told myself I don't want to die without having known what it would be like to have sex. So at this point I was 32. I know, crazy, right? To think 32 and you haven't had sex yet. I know, right? Crazy. I tried to tell myself, I was like, look, Beyonce was, I don't know how old. She was older, like in her 20s. Adriana Lima, beautiful supermodel. She was 27 or 28, I think, when she first had sex. Because they said it, right? Tina Fey was a certain age. She was older. Jessica Simpson is when she got married to Nick Lachey. So, like, I think, from what I remember, like, reading about her. So there were people that did, and I hate to say lose virginity, I want to say you gain an experience So, I was, yeah, I was 32 at the time, and I remember just thinking, because I feel like honestly my safety was being compromised. Um, and there was a movie on Netflix called A Nice Girl Like You, and it's with Lucy Hale from the show Pretty Little Liars, and uh, I don't know, something about the movie. It's if you watch it, you'll understand. It just something about it stuck with me, and I was like, I resonated with the main character, and I was like, man, I was like, this is so me. I was like, this is, and I wanted, I wanted to know what the experience was like, and I didn't, so, um, I went. I think I was dating, like trying to date with intention, right? I was trying to do the meet a nice guy. There were a few people I matched with. One of them, one guy, I remember he was a tennis player. He was like tall, skinnier. He was cute. But some people, and if you're on a dating app, like there's some people you write and then they take forever to write back, or they write back like 5 days later, or they ghost you completely. It's very like, it's a very up in the air situation with dating apps. So, anyways, I didn't take it like too seriously, but then I told myself, you know what, screw it. I am going to do the casual thing. And the person I was friends with at the time that lived in Pennsylvania, she didn't think like she thought the casual meant like it didn't mean sex. That she thought it meant just like dating multiple people, getting to know them. No, usually casual means like there's no commitment. You're treating it very like surface level. If you feel a good chemistry or vibration with somebody, you act on that, and you might hook up with them. You may not. But there's no exclusivity. You're just very surface level, getting to know people, courting them, whatever. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna not focus on. I'm just gonna. I think even said I wanted to do friends with benefits kind of thing. I think that's what I was looking for, or I told myself, because I go, because of not being successful with the long term thing, I was like, let me do whatever. So I went ahead and I don't even know how, like, there was a guy. I was on Bumble, and it was late at night. I was in the bathroom. I was on the toilet, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, whatever. And I swiped on a guy, and he said, are you available? Whatever. It was like 10 o'clock at night. And I said, sure. I was like, yeah. I was like, he was like, okay, cool. I'll meet you, whatever. And we met at an Irish pub where I was living at in the time in Virginia. And that was the night that I don't say lost my virginity, but that was, very not planned. I did not plan on that at all. And he was really cute. So he was allegedly, he said he worked in government stuff, and that he was. I thought he was cute from his picture. The way he looked made him seem that way. He also was. He said he was in the army, or whatever. Military, right? So I was like, and I used to have a thing with like military people. I like anyone in uniform. I was like, it was like the military to me growing up was like the Abercrombie and Fitch of like guys, now not so much, and there's a reason for that. I'm not going to go into it, but yeah, now when I see military, I'm like, no. I'm like, no thank you. um, and I don't want to generalize that to all military people, but yeah, so I'm like, nope, swipe left. But anyways, he was that. And then because if you in Virginia, so Virginia's the DMV. I didn't realize was it DC, Maryland, Virginia, or is it Delaware, Maryland? I don't know. Anyways, the DMV is very military heavy, very government, federal worker heavy, whatever. But yeah, I went on a date with this dude, and I'll never forget, I wore like my black V-neck tee, and I had a sweater on or whatever, and he said something about like going back. I remember his profile said looking for like everything. He put emojis of kids, the house, a ring, or whatever. I was like, okay. I was like, why not? Totally got blindsided with that one. Basically, we went back to my place. We had wine. I had wine, and I had a cake from. It was called Ted Bulletin. They had like all these really good baked goods. I'm big on sweets. I love sweets, and so I had leftover, like, I think it was carrot cake or chocolate cake, one of the two, and I had wine. I had wine at the apartment. And I said, oh yeah, let's go back to my place, whatever. I didn't really think at the moment that anything was going to happen. I really honestly and innocently, I thought, oh, we'll just have cake, whatever. And then one thing led to another. He asked me, he's like, oh, would you like a massage? And I was like, oh, sure. In my head, I'm like, yeah, why not? Oh, I'll take a neck massage. And then he started kissing my neck, and then one thing led to another, and that was my first time having sex. Which I don't know, am I supposed to, can I say that on YouTube? Or they flag me for that? I don't know. Maybe it depends on the context in which you're speaking about it. And so it makes it even more interesting because I was trying to figure out how I was in the process of like wanting to get certified to teach English abroad, to maybe move abroad. And as per my brother's advice, he's like, oh, sell all your furniture, come live with us in Chicago, with him, is whatever. And I had done that, so I didn't have any furniture. I had a blanket on the floor, like this pink blanket that I'm on now. I had a patio table that I brought inside, was my table, from Wayfair. And yeah, it was, I don't remember, God, it was, looking back, I go, do I regret not doing it with someone that I loved or really cared about? I was more focused on the experience of it and wanting to understand whatever all the hype was about. Do I recommend, if I can go back in time, would I change that? Probably, because there were other people I was talking to or pursuing later on that I look back and I go, man, I wish I would have had my first time with that person, because now I've coped with it. And once you do it, it's kind of just like a rite of passage, and it's like whatever, like we all have, that's how babies are made, it's nothing new. It's but for me it was such a mystery, because for my whole life I thought of sex as taboo. I was scared to do it because I didn't know if I was going to be good at it. I was scared about someone seeing me naked, because there's a lot of vulnerability when you do that, right? You're skin to skin with somebody. There's a lot that comes with that. So which I'm going to take another sip of my tea. So yeah, I was 32. Which seems like, oh my god, you're late 30s? That's whoa. But I don't really, I will say that because I'm not with the person I did it with. I'm not with him. I'm not dating him. And it was really, at the end of the day, it was such pushback and back and forth with it, because basically after that he said all he really could do was a physical relationship with me. He said he couldn't afford to do an actual relationship. So I was blindsided, like I said, because on his profile it said he wanted this, and like all this stuff, and I was like, and I think also that's why I did do it with him, because I thought he wanted that eventually down the line. And then I was told, oh no, I can only do, and I will say though, because of that experience, we did try to, I said, well, I gave him like not an ultimatum. I said, let's do this. Let's meet each other halfway. Let's compromise. I'll show you the meaning of true, like good, like kindness. I'll treat you with respect or whatever. And you, and the flip side, you be my, it sounds really bad. I want to say sex buddy, but like you be my, you help me feel, because I treated it as like exposure therapy for me, because I was so nervous about it. So I feel proud of myself that like he did help me feel comfortable, I would say, in my skin. I feel a lot more empowered now as a woman, knowing what I want with my body, knowing what is pleasurable to me, because of that, the casual context in which I engaged in that manner with him. Now, as a Christian, I'm not really Catholic, as a Christian spiritual woman, would you say, oh, that behavior is lewd, it's crude, it's perverse, it's raunchy, it's distasteful, it's sacrilegious? I don't think so. I was 32. I think you can't get any more devout or celibate than that. One of the coworkers I worked with later on in Virginia, I don't know why I ended up telling her my story, and I always promised I wouldn't get into personal stuff with people I worked with. Um, but I did, and she said, "Why didn't you wait till you were married or have?" And I go, "Well, I'm 30." I was like, "I don't want to." I was like, "I want," you know. And it's funny because ever since after that, it kind of it started a domino effect, and I kind of almost went a little too not sex happy, but like I you know, because I was like, "Oh, this is so," it was so new to me. So there's a musical called Spring Awakening. I think that kind of speaks to my situation well, because it was so my basically coming of age, I blossomed later on in life, where people are 17, 18, 19, they go away to college and they're hooking up in a dorm room, you know, condoms or whatever. I'm I was older, you know, and I look at it like, if a guy's gonna look at me as like a weirdo or a freak for that, I'm gonna be like, well, I don't want to date him. And on the flip side, if a guy tries to exploit that, or, you know, they're like, oh, you know, because some guys are crude and weird, and they're like, ooh, I want to take a, you know, whatever, a virgin, you know, it's not really, it's not about that. So for me, I think, I will say, if you're a young girl, like, let's say you not a young girl, let's say you're a young adult maybe, and maybe you're not, like, maybe you had sex at like 18, maybe you were 15. I think there's always a chance you have to, like, kind of wipe your slate clean and start over. Um, like, there's people who are, what's it called? I forgot what it's called. Not like newly celibate. There's a word for it. Um, I can't remember what it was. But anyways, you always have the chance to choose. Like, it's your body. You choose what you want to do with it. I feel really grateful for the experience I did have, because I was really scared to have sex, and I felt like, you know, and everyone, it's like riding a bike. You do it the first time, it's not going to be great. It's going to be kind of wobbly. And then as you do it more and more, you progressively get better at it. And it's so funny going about my life, like when I was younger, if I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I forget, like, oh my God, I'm like, I look in the mirror sometimes, I'm like, oh my God, I'm sexually active. I'm like, I can't believe it. Because I was like, am I going to be 40 years old and be like, you know, some people are, some people have it, you know, that's the way it is. And everyone's journey is different. We're all at a different point in our journey. Um, so I might pause it here, but, yeah, so that's kind of, after that, I tried to have I did the casual thing in Virginia. Um, I did hook up with other people after him. Um, he was kind of, there was always this, like, I think, push-pull dynamic. I kind of felt, honestly, like there was things that he was not telling me, that he was being kind of secretive about. Like, maybe he was, I don't know, catfishing me, or, like, there was just things that I felt like he wasn't being totally, like, wholly honest about. Um, and that's, you know, I will say, when you start to engage in a manner with someone, like, if you try to date them, what I expect is that people, my dog is looking at me so intently. She's like, what are you talking about right now? She's like, why are you espousing about? There's a reason why. So, any hoosers. I forgot what I was saying. Oh, it's, yeah, everyone's at a different point in their life, of their journey. Um, some people, you know, there's people, which I'm going to get into talking about, there's people who, on the flip side, are totally very open sexually, and they have open relationships, and they go to sex clubs, they go to orgies, they have all these different things that are, like, not really what I'm into. You know, because plus you can get someone pregnant, people get STDs and stuff like that. And you never want to do that. I think that's very risky, right? Um, so I think you need to go through the phase of, you know, it's like when I say people should be a server once in their life, I think we all need to go through, like, a phase where you just have fun, you know, meaning, like, you know, and my parents, I know, probably would disagree with that. I've had conversations with them where they disagree with that, and I've been called certain things, um, and yeah, so just do what feels right to you. I will say, stay safe. I feel like once you do become sexually active, there's this whole other world that you have to consider, meaning like, you know, your sexual health. Like, you don't want to bring a child into this world if you're not ready for that. You know, and I've worked in a NICU, I've been a babysitter, I know what comes with that. So, if you're gonna have unprotected sex, have a plan for that. You might need to spend $50 to have Plan B, you know. And Plan B is something that I learned. You don't want to treat that casually or frivolously. And the Plan B, I've learned it's not something that kills a baby, because I'm anti-abortion. I don't really condone people just, like, let's say I got pregnant, like, from just a one night stand, which I don't do. I don't condone one night stands. I don't do that. I'm just saying, let's say if something turns into a situation where it becomes that by happenstance, right? I'm not the kind of person like, oh, let me take a pill and just, no, I don't believe in that. That's my opinion. Maybe you have it just, you know, but I think in certain circumstances, if you're raped, if someone were to be raped, if there was incest, if it's like not consensual, which would be rape. If there's a possibility of a pregnancy being, an at-risk pregnancy, like where the mom's there's health complications, then but if it's just like willy-nilly, like, oh, I got pregnant, no, like, you should have closed your legs, you should have whatever, you know, that's my opinion. But there's a lot that comes with sexual health, like the STDs, the STIs, emotionally. You know, if you're not ready for something emotionally, because women, we connect, we have emotion, men connect physically, right? It's just, that's like known. We lead with the physical first. We lead with the emotion first. They're more spontaneous. They can, like, they don't need like, they can just, you know, turn on whatever. We need like the coaxing, the seduction, the foreplay, all that stuff. So I think yeah, just be mindful is that when you are ready to do that, be ready and make sure you vet the person you're doing it with. I know some people now with hookup culture, because I've noticed that there's this change now that it's not hookups, it's like agreed upon non-monogamy, which is ethical non-monogamy. You're engaging in a non-monogamous relationship, so you have a girlfriend, you have a boyfriend, but you're allowed to go off and like explore other people. I don't really know what the parameters are. I don't know if couples choose how far, like what if, my thing is, what if you have an emotional affair with somebody and you fall in love with somebody, and I'm not into that. I think when you're dating someone, it's okay to talk to multiple people because it's nothing serious yet, and you're just trying to gauge compatibility. But if you're in an exclusive relationship and you're living with somebody, I think that could be kind of tricky. Unless you're like, hey, let's do threesomes. I don't know what people do in their private lives. I'm not really into that. I don't really want. And people do that. People are like, yeah, let's bring this dude and this one and this girl, and it's just like go ham. Like, literally, I was in Handmaid's Tale. There was a scene that I was watching where they take Elizabeth Moss goes to like, it's so crazy because they're such hypocrites, because these are people that they claim to be like for God, and like they want to produce children, like to give grace to God or whatever, as like to venerate God. And it's like, then they go off and they have a night where they go to a sex club, and I'm like, how hypocrite do you have to be? You're sitting there promoting like, oh, Jesus, divine God, master, whatever, and producing babies for Jesus, and it's like, no. Yeah. So, for me personally, and that's a whole nother video I was going to do, but I know a lot of people, and I don't want to seem like a Debbie Downer or talk down about people's lifestyles. It's just, for me, I would prefer monogamy. I mean, who knows, maybe down the line, I don't think I ever will do a polyamorous kind of thing, just because I think if you can offer your love to one person and you can make that love really strong and build a strong foundation, versus having a bunch of just like shallow, transient, more like casual connections, but you always have a steady person to come back to. I don't know. I just feel like if you can't offer your love to one person and you make that commitment, that's what marriage is all about. And maybe marriage is dying. Who knows? Maybe in 5 years, 10 years, marriage might be obsolete, and people don't get married as often and don't have kids as often. I mean, you never know. You never know the trends of where things might go. We might be in this period of liberation where people are like, fuck it, I'm gonna have five. To me, it's kind of like, I view it almost as being like a, like polygamy in a sense. If you're gonna have multiple partnerships, I view that as being polygamy, which I'm pretty sure is illegal. Not in Utah though. I think polygamy is legal in Utah, but I kind of view it as like, in other countries they have a harem of women or different wives, or they have five wives, and I'm like, I know that's a thing. Like, I want to be respectful for different cultures, but for me, I think if you're gonna have somebody in your life, I'd rather have one person be my best friend, my lover, my teammate, than rather give my love to a bunch of different people at the same time. That's just my. Now, if I'm dating, it's a different story. Dating is like, you're a single person and you want to, like, meet this person and talk to this one, and maybe you're not ready to settle down with one person yet. I think that's okay. But if you're, that's just my opinion, and I don't want to generalize that to everybody, but that's kind of how I see it. And yeah, you want to be mindful and respectful of other people's wishes and their decisions, but that's why you date. You try to figure out if you're compatible with someone else or not. So yeah, that's kind of my story. I'm kind of, I've gone through a lot in the past few years. I actually told myself that I thought I was never going to be able to date because of things that I went through, because of what someone did in the past. And I told myself, I am not going to stop living my life or amputate parts of myself or make myself seem small to fit into a certain picture frame. I'm just not. I'm not. Like, it's not fair. That means someone has some total control over your life. If you're going to live your life according to what someone else thinks, or if you're going to live your life in fear, then you're not living. You're existing. And when it comes to sex and stuff like that, I will say be mindful, because you don't want to be like, because I was scared and I didn't want to, like, I kind of equate my situation. So in the show, the Tattoos of Auschwitz, there's a character who tells Lolly, they're in the barracks, right, in the bunks, and he says, but Lolly, I haven't had sex yet. And that literally hit home for me, because I felt that I was not. I'm trying to talk about my thing without talking about it and being too direct, because I just don't want to. I went through stuff. People were not so nice and whatnot. So, you grow and you learn, and I feel grateful I had the experiences. If I can go back in time, would I change it? Maybe, but it happened, and it was supposed to happen that way. I don't know what that man is doing or what he's up to. I will always remember it as an experience that I had. It was a very turbulent time in my life, and you give yourself grace. And you have, every single day you wake up, you have the chance to start fresh and start new. And that's what I'm going to do. So, yeah. But yeah, everyone's going to have a different story of when their first time was, and out of respect for that person, I don't want to go too much into what that was like, or whether he was good at it, whether I was pleased with what I saw and his, genitalia and packaging and whatnot. Because I realized, one thing I will say, I realized, just like us as women, we have different breast sizes and whatnot. Men have different, they're all different, I didn't know, the sizing and shapes and all this stuff, and you want to be respectful of that, because everyone, and here's one thing I will say, I do want to say this, is that, because there's a lot of debate, men go, oh, there's a lot of, especially in sex world, that the bigger the better. I mean, you don't want to, like, some people might have small or whatever, but I think it's more so what you can do with it. I don't want to sound too crude when I say that, but it's true. I think that's how I see it. And, some women are going to have smaller breasts. Some women are going to have big breasts. Some men are going to have smaller genitalia. Maybe some people have bigger. And to me, so I don't want to get too crude, to me, the bigger sometimes is harder. Like, it's not as comfortable. For me, in my opinion. That's just what I think. So, I think it's preference. It's what you like. And I think if you communicate, if you have a partner where you can communicate with them and you say, hey, I like this feels good, do this and that, then you're in good territory. If you're with someone who only cares about, like, them and the end result, you're not going to be happy. That's how I see it. So I think, like I said, give yourself grace. If you feel like you're behind in terms of sex and stuff like that, you're not. Make sure you're ready for that. And what is this? Oh, that's nice. I'm sorry. I look at I get emails and I'm like, oh, I want to see what that is. So yeah, give yourself grace and humility, and you always have the chance to start again. And what's the beautiful part is that when you do actually meet the right person for you at the right place at the right time, I think you're gonna realize when that person comes into your life, you're gonna realize why you never worked with anyone else. There's a quote that says that, and everything that you hoped for and more in terms of compatibility. Like, I'm very big on compatibility on all fronts. I want to make sure that, like, we have good sexual chemistry, like physically. We have good, there's intellectually stimulating conversation. Vulnerability is there. He can be vulnerable, I can be vulnerable. There's authenticity, there's honesty and integrity. I think when you have, like, I consider it like a trifecta. Basically, you have, like, there's sexual chemistry and physical chemistry, the emotional, and, like, the spiritual. Like, those all come together to culminate to create this really wonderful foundation, right? And again, sometimes people, you might not be ready for that kind of thing. You might just want to sow your oats and flirt and talk to this guy and talk to that girl and, you know, maybe you need that sometime. And then also, I think rejection is important too. Rejection builds character, and you have to say, and never take it to heart, never take it personally. Take it like, thank you for showing me disinterest, or thank you for showing me that I'm not your cup of tea, because what's going to happen is that's going to save room for the right people, and the wrong people will be, you're basically weeding out, you know, the bad seeds, or not the bad seeds, the people that you're not compatible with, to save room for the right ones, which also lends itself is to desperation, which is another video I want to touch on, is that never seek companionship. You might do it, it might happen, but seeking companionship out of loneliness or desperation is not a good recipe, because then you're going to be trauma bonded to someone. You're not going to actually love them. You're going to like the idea of them, and you're going to like the idea of safety and feeling. Trust me, I should know, because that happened to me. I fell prey to that, and that was not anyone else's doing. That was just me and the way I perceived somebody. You know, I gravitated to somebody, and I kept, and they were only giving me. In fact, it was the first person that I was with. I wasn't getting. It wasn't a really healthy dynamic. It was built off of just, like, I think not reciprocity, just, yeah. It wasn't the right fit. And because I was so desperate to have, I guess, that human companionship and whatnot, I ended up, you know, tolerating what I didn't deserve. And so I encourage you to that. If you're somebody that, number one, if you're an empath like me, and you gravitate towards those kind of relationships, I would be very, like, mindful that, like, you just, yeah, be mindful, because you don't want to end up in something, and you don't want to settle for someone that you know that you're not going to be happy with. You want to reach, you want to aim high, you know. Never settle for you're less than what you deserve. And there's a really good quote by Olivia Rodrigo. That girl's so way beyond her years. Definitely an old soul, for sure, 100%. She's like 20 something, or she was like 17, 18. She started writing these songs that were so profound and, like, thought provoking. She has a song called "Scared of My Guitar" that I love. That she says this line. She says, because what if I never find anything better? The doubt always creeps through my mind. So we'll stay together, because how could I ever trade something that's good for what's right? And that's the truth. I'm trying to find the other. But I'd rather be tied to someone, but I'm not half as decent as you. I'd rather be tied to someone even if they're wrong. I make excuses. My friends know the truth is I'm not as all right as I claim. I say that I'm fine. I tell them all the time as they watch all the light fade away. Because I'm scared of my guitar, because it cuts right through to the heart. Yeah, it knows me too well, so I got no excuse. I can't lie. I can't lie to it the same way that I lie to you. I'm so scared of my guitar. If I play it, then I'll think too hard, because once you let the thought in, it's already done. So I lay in your arms and I'll pretend that it's love. And she says, because what if I never find anything better? The doubt always creeps through my mind. So we'll stay together, because how could I ever trade something that's good for what's right? That's such a powerful line. How could I ever trade something that's good for what's right? Meaning, you're staying in something for the sake of just staying in it, rather than waiting for what you know is right, than doing the homework you need to do on yourself to make yourself, because when you think about it, if you're single, that's such a beautiful time to work on yourself and make yourself into the person, to being the wife that you want to be for someone, or the husband that you want to be for someone. It's not a time to feel sad and helpless, like, oh, I'm so alone. No. If you're alone, look at that as time to cultivate things that could make you, right? Because for me, at least the way I look at it, that I want to be the best, if I ever do. I don't know. At this point, I'm like, I don't know if I want to marry anybody, but I want to make myself into the best possible person I can be as individually, right? So that when I do meet the right person, I show up for them. I'm emotionally attuned. I'm emotionally aware. I'm emotionally mature, and I can give all of myself to somebody, versus being like kind of wishy-washy, not really where I want to be, and like, being scatterbrained, like, I'd rather be mature, emotionally mature and mentally prepared, so that when I do enter a partnership with somebody, I'm not doing it just casually or frivolously, like there's intention behind it, like you're preparing yourself for being a wife to somebody, you're preparing yourself to be a husband. Now you may be someone who's like, yeah, but I want multiple relationships, I want to sow my oats, I want to have my cake and eat it too, I want to have my partner that I know I can come home to, but I also want to engage and do some other fun stuff on the side. I encourage you to maybe look within and say, why is it that you need to do that, right? Because if you need to do that, that maybe means that you're, instead of devoting your time and energy to that one person and making that relationship really solid and great, you feel the need, and maybe exploring sex with them safely, right? Because to me, if I'm going to be with one person and I want to do all the fun stuff, I want to say, and yeah, I get it. I understand now, like, when you have sex with somebody, it's going to be the same dick. I don't want to say, can I say that? The same parts that you're going to see day in and day out. That's what you sign up for. And that's why I say, if you're not ready for marriage, don't get married. And maybe you want to do the polyamorous thing because, you want to have your marriage and you want to have your fun. Maybe don't get married. Just don't make it legal. Just date different people. That's just my perspective. But anyways, that's kind of my story. Am I dating now? I don't know if you call going on an app, a dating app, dating. It's just, I'm courting people, I'm getting to know people. And that's it. It's a journey. There's no one right way to do life. Everyone's journey is going to be different, and you respect that, and you give yourself grace. And you may F up, you may make mistakes, you may go back to an ex, and you may go back to someone you're like, oh, should I have done that? As long as you know what you're getting into and you're mature, I think you can handle anything, and you remember how people treat you. And if you feel someone's lying to you, listen to that, heed that, because energy doesn't lie, and your gut doesn't lie either.